Good morning. It is a Monday edition of Glenn Clark Radio, and I would much rather be talking about the Orioles winning 3 baseball games and Gunnar Henderson getting a super. We got to come up with a good term for the thing that's better than a cycle.
Super cycle, man.
Yeah, somebody suggested that this morning. We got to come up with one because the idiocy of, well, you should just not do as well. Have a lesser game because we have a neat name for it. Instead of, having a better performance as a baseball player. We are dopes. We are truly, it's what my friend Rita likes said. There's a reason why the aliens have just sort of passed over us over the years. We know they're here. We got the proof. There's literally UFO. They're just like, nah. We were looking for intelligent life. Down here, they think a guy should stop at first base. Because there's a neat name for it. And nothing else.
Well, I mean, it doesn't happen often.
No. There's. You know what else doesn't happen often? 2 doubles, a triple, and a home run. In fact, it happens less frequently. We just don't have a neat name for it. That's it. The entirety of what occurred yesterday is one of these things we have a neat name for, and the other one we don't. So because we've got a neat name for it, we think somebody's supposed to stop. But. It pales in comparison, of course, to the topic at hand today, which is the interview that John Angelos did with the New York Times. So, coming up on the program this morning, we will talk Orioles, I promise. Michael Baumann, not that Michael Baumann, the other Michael Baumann who writes for Fangraphs will join us. Also, our buddy Ryan Ripken will check in, and Jeremy Conn will join us as well. That's all coming up on the program today. But obviously, yeah, we are all dealing with the same thing. I'm kind of intrigued by the timing of why, when, all these things. Like, when did John Angelos talk to the New York Times? Why was it an immediate reaction to the thing? Was it in the aftermath of the Kevin Brown thing? I know what I'll do. I'll talk to the New York Times. Why the New York Times? Why not, a local outlet? Grant, I love you. Let's sit out this one, all right? I love you, buddy. We're going to get to you, I promise. Let's just sit out this one, all right? Why? Why not, again, here? And then the of course, bigger issue is the things that were said. Where is the line between I don't want to use any of these terms that aren't going to go friendly. I'm trying to tell you these things because I'm openly telling you if I don't get the things that I want, I'm not going to spend money on baseball players for you. And I want to get these things, but it doesn't really have anything to do with whether or not I'm going to spend on baseball players. Where's the line between what someone would say is a stick-up? And I'm not going to be the one that says that, but I understand why people might feel that way. Some of the highlights, if you have not seen them, and I can't go over all of them, but if you want some of the highlights from the New York Times, the Orioles' $70 million payroll this season ranks 28th of the 30 teams. It is largely a function of the players' lack of service time, which limits their earning power in the peculiar economy of baseball. Angelos has a lot of qualms with that system. Quote, the hardest thing to do in sports is be a small market team in baseball and be competitive because everything is stacked against you. Everything, unquote, he said. And he conceded that it might not be feasible for his popular young core to be career Orioles like Brooks Robinson, Jim Palmer, and Cal Ripken Jr. Without major changes, he sees only one way the team could retain all of its young stars. Quote, we're going to have to raise the prices here dramatically, unquote, he said. Goes on. Quote, well, that's a good question. This is a different excerpt. Quote, well, that's a good question, unquote, Angelos said. Quote, but let's say we sat down and showed you the financials for the Orioles. You will quickly see that when people talk about giving this player $200 million, that player $150 million, We would be so financially underwater that you'd have to raise the prices massively. Now, are people going to come and pay that? I don't know if we're at the limit, to your point. I don't know if we're in equilibrium elasticity, supply and demand. Maybe we are, but really, that's just one team. What I'm really trying to think about is macro, unquote. Now, as I said before, I do not begrudge John Angelos uniquely for attempting to get more in the stadium lease, because I don't begrudge any owner. They can ask. I mean, I can ask for whatever I would like. I might ask John Colson to give me $6 billion this year. You can ask for whatever you want to ask for. But there's a fine line between asking and what happens when, reasonable people say, yes, this isn't feasible. I've said all along, I'm in favor, to some extent, I'm in favor of the idea that John Angelos has pitched for the area around the ballpark. The problem is, it's just not practical. He keeps, and even in this story, he continues to compare to Atlanta. But we all know the difference. The ballpark is not in Atlanta. They went and found a place, and it might even still be considered Atlanta proper.
Right.
They went and found a spot where there was a ton of space. They separated it from the downtown area, and in doing so, were able to build around it. Where the ballpark stands in Baltimore, there is no such space. It does not exist. We've been through this. I have scoured the map looking for some sort of idea. I cannot come up with it. Apparently, John Angelos thinks the parking lots can be the answer. There are people that share visions for urban areas that say there should never be parking lots around stadiums. That space can be better used in urban development. There are people who have that opinion. Everything can be public transportation, and you can use all of that space. There should never be parking lots. Those opinions exist. And they're well-meaning in terms of urban planning, in terms of what's the best way to use certain space. It will be pointed out that you have X percentage of homeless people within a city, and yet here you have this space that you're giving for parking lots. And that in urban planning, that space can be better used to solve, say, your homeless crisis. And it's well reasoned. It means well. It's almost utopian thought. And I don't begrudge those who might even have the goals to try to do it that way. Is it practical? No, it's not practical. Not in a capitalist society. Not in a place where everybody's trying to make money. Not in a place. I mean, like it. Again, if you want to, and I'm sure that some of the people that share this opinion are in favor of socialism, but that's not where we are. And in a capitalist culture, it doesn't work. Moreover, as has been brought to our attention, the lease agreement specifically with the Ravens guarantees a certain number of parking spots because of the culture of tailgating within football. The Ravens are guaranteed to have a certain number of parking spots. Now, it's been brought to my attention by some people that maybe at some point in the future, the Ravens might be well served to move their stadium specifically in order to have more spots for tailgating that they own and they can profit off of. It is interesting how the Ravens have never really attempted to use their stadium to create a greater profit margin. Perhaps it speaks to how good the revenue sharing system is in football that they don't feel like they need to. That the TV money alone is just fine for the Ravens. That they don't need to maximize the profits of their stadium space in downtown Baltimore. I brought it up a number of times. They've never attempted to build some sort of permanent team store or, restaurant or have any sort of touch downtown. They have a limited number of parking spaces that they can sell. People openly, host major tailgate parties at other locations that are very walkable to the stadium. In a way, we should give great credit to Steve Bisciotti for the fact that, I don't know if you want to call it greed or business not humility at all, but just business acumen has never gotten in the way of trying to deliver the best stadium experience that he can for a fan base. That at no point did he step in and say, I could make a lot more money if I wasn't here. I can. The Ravens are the Ravens. We don't need the downtown location in order to draw fans. We could go somewhere else, have much more space, a la Kansas City, where they have all of those parking lots surrounding the stadium. We could own all of it, profit off of all of it, and be better business-wise for it. But they haven't done that. And they're not going to do it because they agreed to a new lease. Where this goes from here, I got nothing. And if John Angelos' comments in the New York Times are for the purpose of trying to put pressure on the Maryland Stadium Authority and the state and public to try to win over as much as the public to say, oh, if they don't get this thing downtown, we might lose baseball players. It's sort of like a politician talking in the lead up to an election. We're kind of just going to say anything. And should I be bothered by it? Yeah, maybe. Maybe I should be, but I also understand the game. But there's a line. There's a line between trying to win something over, win a vote, win a deal, and actual threats. If it's practical, if John Angelos is telling you, if I don't get the parking lots near Camden Yards, I'll refuse to spend any money on baseball players, then that's shameful. It's absolutely beyond any amount of reason and far beyond the pale. And speaks to unfit for the role.
So if that is true, then does that lead to a scenario where somebody else can step in, like Rob Manfred could step in?
No, of course not. Absolutely not.
If he's saying, I'm not going to spend money.
That's he's the owner of the baseball team. I don't know what you're trying to suggest. That the commissioner of baseball gets to tell owners how to run their business?
Well, if he's saying I'm not going to participate essentially in free agency, or
the Marlins don't. There are plenty of teams that don't spend money in free agency. That's not new. The Orioles haven't for some time. I don't know what you think the concerning part would be. Major League Baseball allows for all the owners to operate and run their businesses as they see fit. The owners have made sure that they have fought for not having salary floors, not having salary caps. Because of that, you don't have to fit into anything. You can slash your payroll as much as you possibly want. That's how the Orioles got into this to begin with. They slashed their payroll. Now, they did try to do something, baseball, by changing the rules of the draft system so that you can't just keep collecting number one picks for 4 to 5 years. They try to do something about it. But trying to prevent purposeful tanking doesn't prevent accidental tanking. You could still be really bad and just not get number one picks anymore. But we don't know. And that's the difficult part about this. On surface level, he's not saying any of those things. He's not holding anyone up. He's not saying, well, if you don't do this, I refuse. He's just sort of nebulously saying, well, it's going to be difficult. We'd have to raise prices on everything. Well, as I said a million times before, give a city a certain product, and there is a greater price that they're willing to pay. If you can be certain that the Orioles are going to be good for some time with a core of young players that this fan base loves, then there's a greater price that fan base will be willing to pay in order to go see it. That's the reality of it. To what end? And that's where he gets into using the elasticity and all the equilibrium. To what end? I don't know either. Where is the breaking point? Couldn't tell you. We keep paying for crabs no matter how much the prices go up. We keep paying for gas no matter how much the prices go up. I don't know what we do with ticket prices. I understand his campaign. I do, and that's the difficult part for me. We also got the closest we're ever going to get to an apology for the Kevin Brown situation. We're never going to get one. Don't ask. Like, that's not going to happen. But the closest thing that could be offered to an apology over the Kevin Brown situation you were able to get, which is it shouldn't have happened and it won't happen again. Okay, well,
cool.
I mean,
Good.
it still did happen, and you are kind of the Orioles. Like you're to say it shouldn't have happened. Well, you probably could have done something about it. And I'm a little confused by that, but you know what, man? Probably not germane. I'm glad you're at least recognizing that it shouldn't have happened. There's something to be said for that, I guess. I don't know. Very confusing. All very difficult. All very difficult to try to figure out.
But to your point, they announced an extension this week for Adley and Gunnar. They're both here for the next 5 to 7
years. Yeah, well, nobody
years.
cares, right?
Yeah,
I understand that, and I've said that a million times, but it goes back to it's not even like chicken and the egg. It's like chicken, egg, omelet or something like that at this point. Like everything is feeding into one. How are you going to get to that point where they announce extensions? Well, John Angelos says we might not at all, but, then ties it to what it is they're trying to do downtown. And maybe if we get that, then perhaps that could change the economic look of this team. And then, he's not telling you there's an A to B. He's sort of saying, here's A, and then B's over here, and I don't know, there's a path along the way that maybe we could get to those things. It's also possible that what he's saying is, even if we were to redo the area downtown, even if I were to get this Camden Crossing thing that I want, I might not. Remember, there's a reason why John Angelos publicly chose to say the next Tampa when he wasn't asked about it at the beginning of the year. There were a lot of people that didn't want to read too much into that, but that was about as publicly as someone could come out and say, we're not going to be the team that you want this to be. He didn't say the next Houston. He didn't say the next Chicago. He didn't say the next Philadelphia. He said the next Tampa. And some of us really caught on to that. There were others that said, well, I just think that means that he wants to compete as a small market. Okay. But he didn't say the next San Diego. Also a small market. Also competing. He said the next Tampa. And what's the one thing we know about Tampa? They never, ever have an elevated payroll. Never. They are never outside of the bottom third of payrolls in baseball. Ever. That's what we know about Tampa. And probably we should have listened. Now, even if that's the case, that doesn't mean they can never spend money on a baseball player. But it's kind of announcing what your intention is and daring people to believe it. And then backing it up. This is the way it's going to go. It's very infuriating because it comes at a time where the team is performing well, you are believing that they are capable of doing something special, and you just want to be able to fall in love with the baseball players and have a romantic feeling about it. And every time it happens, you get kind of kicked in the teeth a little bit. This isn't the Kevin Brown situation. This is just but small market, small, blah. It's just impossible. Yeah, well, with that attitude. I don't know. I hope beyond hope. I hope that there is some sort of in-between here. Or if there isn't, I hope that there's, frankly, new ownership. I mean, I can't hide from that. If the answer is going to be, if I don't get this, then we can't compete the same way, I don't want that. I can't lie. I'm with you guys. Now, I'm not going to be a jerk about it. I'm not going to get into name calling, but that's not good. I hope there's an amount of posturing here in an attempt to get something done related to what it is they're looking to do around the stadium. I hope that an amount of these comments are directly related to that. And honestly, I understand. I get it if that is the case. Whether it is or not remains to be seen. Fun day. Fun day. Orioles are coming home tomorrow, baby. First place in the AL East by 3 games. And there's more of this. All right. Today's show is brought to you by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. All right. Joining us now, somebody just wrote this, an interesting piece. It was called Those Gosh Darn Marlins and or Orioles Are At It Again for Fangraphs. He's Michael Baumann, but he's not that Michael Baumann. He's the other Michael Baumann, the one that writes for Fangraphs. And he's with us now here on GCR. Michael, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's great to chat with you. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
So I'm an interesting party because I feel like this has been asked in different ways by myself, by others throughout the season. We know that the Orioles are good. Why are the Orioles good? Because there is no overwhelming answer that defines a team that would have the best record in baseball or the best record in the American League at this point.
Yeah, it's interesting. And the reason I wrote the article, I thought to write that article, is it's very similar to what happened in 2012. That you look at the team on paper, certainly nobody expected them to be as good as they were. But again, they had a great crop of young hitters, maybe not as good as this one, completely across the board, a great bullpen, and they just ended up taking it to teams that were way better than them on paper. Won a lot of one-run games, got a lot of what you would describe as clutch hitting, and I just sort of wanted to revisit that. And it turns out, shockingly, a team with a bullpen this good is really good in close games, and so it that kind of thing confounds what I would describe as context neutral analysis. So if you look at a stat like WAR or even counting stats or rate stats like batting average or slugging percentage, that only tells you what happened and not the order in which it happened. If you've seen any team leave the bases loaded, for instance, in a one-run game late in a one-run game, you know that when things happen matters. And so about 10 years ago, the consensus on when that sort of thing happened was, this team's just getting lucky. I think that speaks a little bit more to the way these Orioles are constructed. And I really have no idea if this is going to continue, if that's going to be sustainable in the postseason, because I think this team still does have a lot of holes. But at this point, I think they're overwhelming favorites to definitely make the playoffs and to probably to win the AL East as well.
It's interesting because when we talk about the Pythagorean model, I guess the question becomes does the model need to be changed based on the idea of having a strong back end of a bullpen, right? You point out the Mariano Rivera teams, should there be more recognition for you can be a very good or a uniquely good baseball team if you have a strong back end of the bullpen?
I think that there's a pretty good understanding of that. I think the way I would put that is when you use a model like this, and Dan Zaborski runs our projection system, takes crap every year from fans of teams who are we did X, Y, and Z, and you're saying we're not going to make the playoffs. I think it's important to understand what a model does and what it doesn't do. And so the most data that you have, the best information you have, it almost purposely isn't going to account for outlier performances. And so when you look at the Orioles overperforming their run differential this year, are they constructed in a way to, that's almost designed to beat that model? Yeah, I would say so. But have they also got lucky? Yeah, probably. You need to be lucky and good to be on a 90 whatever win pace. Yeah, so, I think that it is a limitation of the model. But even people like me who use models like that will readily admit that it's not a crystal ball. It's a tool.
I know. I completely understand that. We're chatting with Michael Baumann from Fangraphs. He's with us here on GCR. Michael, you point out in the piece, is it just hang on, before I go there, first of all, what you say about whether or not it can stay in the playoffs, I think it's the part that maybe Orioles fans should and are a bit fearful of, which is the margin for error is so small for this team. We remember, the couple of blown saves that Felix Bautista's had this year, because that's where we are. Like, if it's not going perfectly to plan, then this is not a team that's likely to be able to improvise or adapt in those situations. Like, if something goes wrong with Felix Bautista, it doesn't feel like this team is going to be in a good place to try to overcome that. That suggests that when you face more consistently better teams and teams with their own clutch hitters that are capable of this, and we saw this when Felix Bautista faced the Astros a couple weeks ago, it's going to be far more difficult to do this consistently, to your point, in the playoffs than it has been during the course of the regular season.
Yeah, I think that's true of any team, though. Felix Bautista has been the best relief pitcher in baseball for most of the season. And if you have any all-world closer, blow a save or two in a best-of-5 series, then that's curtains for most teams. So, I think that the Orioles definitely rely on their bullpen more than most. The concern for me is getting there, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
I was astonished that they didn't make more of a move to shore up that starting rotation. I don't know who starts game 2 of an ALDS, for instance. I looked at I'm based out of the Philadelphia area, so I was close to that team during their run to the World Series last year, and they were an underdog that made a big run, but they had very high-end starting pitching. And what struck me was watching throughout that run, pitchers who were okay in the regular season, including Kyle Gibson, who would probably start a playoff game for the Orioles now, just getting tanked when they face a strong postseason offense. And so that would be the concern for me, is not what happens to Felix Bautista.
Sure.
Is can this starting pitchers and can this team hit enough to make them relevant? So that's yeah.
I strongly agree with that. And the bigger problem, that the pitchers that we know have the innings in them, to your point, are Gibson and Flaherty, and those are the two guys that are getting roughed up. Whereas the guys that have been brilliant of late are the guys that we just don't know if they're going to have the innings in them, the Grayson Rodriguez's of the world, by the time you get to the postseason. So let me, this is the other question I have about the model itself and the comparison to 2012. Is can the model predict a team that's on its way, right? Like, is there an inefficiency within the model for a team that is such a young core that there's kind of there's so many unknowns about how they're going to perform when they have a full season of baseball? And it's been, Gunnar Henderson obviously would be an example. I don't know exactly what the expectations were for Gunnar Henderson, but he's going to threaten to push towards 30 home runs this season. How does the model handle a team that we don't have quite as much major league data for, like the Orioles coming into this season?
Yeah. So the way I'd answer that is, this model, that's not what it's designed to do. But there are like individual player projection models, like Zips, which we use, or Pacoda, Baseball Prospectus, that actually take into account the demographic data or minor league stats or age data is hugely important, which is why the Orioles are generally projected to do pretty well, because their core is so young. So I'd say the expectations, even quantitatively, basing for Gunnar Henderson, were huge, and I'd say he's met them at this point. And so there are different models that take different information in and can draw conclusions like the one you're asking for. But even then, the less data you have, the younger the team, the more variance there's going to be. So I think that a young team like the Orioles is going to have maybe a higher upside than a lot of people realize, but also a lower floor. We've seen teams that were loaded with top prospects take a few years to get off the ground, if they do at all. So I'd say the Orioles right now are living out the more optimistic end of some of those projections.
Sure. What does this tell us about what would the roadmap be at this point, Michael? Like, this is and I ask this frequently because I'm skeptical about this team's ability to win a World Series, and we always end up in this kind of interesting place where I'm like, but I'm not sure that was a reasonable measurement for this team either, to suggest that they needed to win the World Series this year versus continue on a trajectory towards becoming a World Series contender. What can we surmise about what the roadmap would have to be in order for the Orioles to have that opportunity to make a deep playoff run?
I think a deep playoff run, I think that's tough to expect from any team. I think just in terms of the direction of the roster, seeing how well guys like Rutschman and Henderson and Westberg have done since coming up, you have to be optimistic about the future. Just getting there, I think, is mission accomplished and then some for this season. Now it's about building the team out going forward, filling those holes and starting pitching. And, I imagine that you've already talked about the Tyler Kepner story with John Angelos.
Ad nauseum. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, this. You don't need me to remind you that a lot of this rests on, that the outlook for this team is different if they're willing to go out and sign, somebody like Aaron Nola in free agency who would solve a lot of problems for this rotation going forward. So I think that right now, you need one good Kyle Bradish start and, you're on your way to at least the ALCS. I think that anybody who gets in has a puncher's chance. But, I think this is mostly about how do you spin this forward into 2024? Because, I mean, it's like 28 other teams in baseball would kill to have this core,
of course,
of young hitters. So, it's all about putting them in the best position to succeed going forward. And that's it's a question that I think it's fair to ask of Mike Elias and the front office and also, I'd say more importantly, of ownership.
Yes. I mean, there's certainly, I guess, given what we see and what we've heard, I think the question becomes, is there enough of a core here that if the additions are minimal, and I think we have every reason to assume that at this point, that they still can build a World Series contender in the next year or two with, say, a Jackson Holiday in the mix next year. Like, given what we've seen of Grayson Rodriguez of late and the thought that if he's this guy, that's absolutely the top of the rotation type of pitcher that we believed him capable of being. Is there enough of a core here to think that if there isn't, massive upgrades, they still could continue growing towards being a World Series contender in the next year or two?
So the roadmap is a little different from situations like this that we've seen. And I would say that if that's what you're looking for is Pittsburgh in the mid-2010s, and then Tampa Bay and Cleveland more recently. Mm-hmm. And all of them have been very, very good. Pittsburgh for a very, very small period of time, but they've all been very good at developing pitching prospects internally and also finding ways to improve guys that they find at the major league level. And I would say this goes for the Astros too, although, they're the trajectory that franchise has been on is a little different. And the Orioles, I mean, it's been a weakness for the Orioles, I think, to put it mildly. But what they have is a better offensive core. And I don't know, maybe you could do it backwards. Maybe they find, I think a lot of the what they've gotten out of their bullpen guys this year speaks to there is something there. They're sort of turning a corner. But if Grayson Rodriguez can be better than Dylan Bundy or some of the other equivalent pitching prospects who haven't really found their footing in Baltimore, that's a game changer. I think that's the big question mark. Is because it's hard to find pitching even if you're spending $200 million a year on payroll. So yep. It's one of the toughest things to do in baseball, and the Orioles traditionally haven't been good at it. And if that changes, then the sky's the limit. But I think that we need to see a little bit more proof. And so, I'm not saying that it can't happen. I'm just saying that it's something that is the thing that this franchise needs to improve on.
And then the last part I would bring in, Michael, has been brought up by a lot of people. The Orioles prioritizing base running maybe a little bit more, although that's died down as the season's gone on. And defense, can that make up for any of the have they found some sort of market inefficiency that they can manipulate moving forward?
I think that helps. I think putting a good defensive team on the field Like, that makes your pitchers' lives a lot easier. I mean, they've got a lot of guys that are standout individual defenders, definitely. And as far as base running, I think that was free money at the beginning of this season.
Yeah.
And I think this was the first thing I wrote in the regular season was was about them stealing 10 bases in 2 games off the Red Sox. Like, this team was built to do that from the start. And so I think that's, if you're going to be set up like the Orioles are, you have to find advantages everywhere you can. I think that's a huge one. And I think we've seen a lot of teams, take base running a lot more seriously this year. I love it. That's the kind of baseball that I would most like to watch is, a smart, aggressive base running. So I think that's something they definitely have to keep doing.
Unfortunately, part of that at the beginning of the year involved Jorge Mateo getting on base, and that's just not something that we have seen since that point of the year. So that's the reality of it. At Michael Baumann on Twitter is how you follow him. Michael, is there anything else I can plug for you, sir?
No, just the article from last week. We'll have obviously more stuff coming this week, so check out Fangraphs.com. Absolutely.
Michael, really appreciate it, man. Thanks for spending a couple minutes with us this morning.
All right, thank you.
It's Michael Baumann with us here on GCR. When we come back in, our buddy Ryan Ripken will join us. We'll talk about the weekend that was and, just the actual baseball stuff for a change. And that'll be nice because it was a nice weekend. That'll be fun. We'll do that next. Glenn Clark Radio. Hike to new heights. The best view is yours in Washington County. Our iconic scenic overlooks provide some of the most breathtaking vistas in the Mid-Atlantic. Some are very easy walks, some can be driven to, and some are the payoff for a moderate to difficult hike. All are near quaint small towns that offer great dining, shopping, hiking gear, and more. Explore our 5 national parks for iconic vistas and wineries with breathtaking views. Visit our quaint historic towns and make your stay unforgettable. Learn more at visithagerstown.com. Maryland, be open.
America's biggest bike race returns to Maryland Sunday, September 3rd as 120 of the world's best cyclists race the Maryland Cycling Classic presented by United Healthcare. Come enjoy the free fan zones and festival with interactives, food, and drink beginning at noon. Then see the exciting race conclusion from 3 to 5 p.m. in the Inner Harbor. Come be loud, be proud, and let the world hear you. For more information, go to marylandcyclingclassic.us.
Soak up summertime fun in Charm City. Enjoy only in Baltimore festivals, mouth-watering eats, and endless entertainment. Cheer on the O's at Camden Yards. Pick crabs by the waterfront. Beat the heat inside a world-class museum and make memories that will last a lifetime. Go to baltimore.org for more information and to plan your visit.
You feel that? That's the sound of football coming back, and now's the time to place your preseason bets with Superbook Sports. Superbook is the most trusted name in Vegas, and now you can use my promo code GlennClark23 to score up to $250 with their first bet bonus. Win or lose, they'll match your first bet up to $250 with the promo code GlennClark23. All one word, no spaces, 2 N's in Glenn. Don't miss out this football season. Win some money with Superbook Sports and that promo code GlennClark23. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
I'm Michael Jangrandi, president of AJ Michaels, your carrier energy expert for 44 years. Save money, energy, and make your home more comfortable and virus-free. Find us at ajmichaels.com. That's ajmichaels.com.
Maryland drivers, did you know you can save up to 77% on tolls with an Easy Pass Maryland discount plan? That's right, 77%. It's never been easier. Pick the plan that's right for you at driveezmd.com. We'll keep you moving.
It's a Maryland thing you wouldn't understand.
Where the waves meet the shore, you will find Dorchester County. Hi, this is Jimmy Charles. When I think of Maryland, I think Dorchester County on the eastern shore where it's open for making memories. Dorchester County, it's a Maryland thing. For more info, visit www.visitdorchester.org.
It's a Maryland thing. Hell yeah. It's a Maryland thing. Hell yeah.
Picking a restaurant to try for the first time? Let's look at the Costas Inn. Here's a few checklist items. Quality of the food? Check. Quality of service? Check. Does restaurant have plenty of free parking? Check. And finally, does restaurant have delicious steamed crabs, crab cakes, crab soup, and specials galore? Check, check, check. Costas Inn, 4100 North Point Boulevard. They check all the boxes.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
Check out PressBoxOnline.com every day to find daily winners and betting advice from Jeremy Conn. And if you want some advice about life decisions that you probably shouldn't make, here's Glenn Clark.
Back in here on GCR. Coming up a little bit later on today, Stan the Fan Charles, Ross Grimsley, Luke Jackson getting together, 4 o'clock, Facebook.com/PressBoxSports. Talking baseball there. Again, you can watch it live there. If you don't make it live, you can find it later. YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline or PressBoxOnline.com/video. Let's get a little bit back more towards what's happening on the field. Joining us now, he is our friend, 105.7 The Fan analyst and fantasy football enthusiast. And, in fact, I'll let him tell us about this cool event he's got coming up. He's our buddy Ryan Ripken, and he's back with us now here on GCR. What's going on, brother? How are you?
I'm good. How are we doing this Monday morning?
Everything is all right except for, there's a New York Times story that everybody's worked up about, and it's making our job less pleasant, so it's what it is. I want to talk baseball with you, though. I need you to help me come up with a name. We've got to figure out a term to call a 4 extra base hit game so that it's got a cool name and people will stop saying insane things about how someone should just stop, do something that's lesser and stop at first base on what's an obvious extra base hit so that they can get a cool name for it like a cycle. We've got to come up with a cool name in order to make up for the idiocy of people thinking that Gunnar Henderson should have stopped at first base yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be my homework for the rest of the day now, to be honest, because the cycle's cool, right? It's a stat and your name goes in history for players that have hit for the cycle. But having said that, getting 4 extra base hits in a game
is better.
Is better. 2 doubles, a triple, a home run, and also too. And I know people have different opinions about it, but the thing that I just love about Gunnar, and this is why it makes him, so likable and such why I think he's going to be, a superstar and MVP. I thought MVP in the next 5 years. I've dropped it down. I think it's possible in the next 2. He just plays the game hard and the right way. He's not looking at what a personal accolade would look like. He goes, well, if I hit a ball down the line, I'm taking 2.
Right.
And as simple as that, and that's something that it might not seem like a big thing and people can joke around a lot, but I just love to see that, especially for a young player, that all that's his focus is to go out there and play ball. And then if it worked out in his favor, then he gets a cycle. But he's not going to shortchange himself or shortchange the team for just, like you say, just a cooler name at the end of the day.
So we have to. We've got to. You understand, Ryan, we are a nation of stupid people. Like, we are dumb. And because we've got a cute name for something, we think that matters more. It's more meaningful to do something when it's got a cute name involved. So we've just got to come up with one, whatever it is. I've had Super Cycle suggested to me. That's fine. But I feel like we can do better than that. We just have to come up with something and then go back and see how many of those there have been in baseball history. And once we've got a cool name for that, we'll stop. And the crazier part to me, and you tell me, because we saw all of his teammates, obviously, why didn't you stop at first base? To me, it's almost spitting in the face of the game to not try. And I think that Gunnar deserves credit for doing the quote-unquote right thing, but it's almost hilarious that we have to say that because it feels like it would be embarrassing for some. Like, we make fun of basketball players that so nakedly try to get one more assist at the end of a game so they can have a triple-double, right? Or that they miss the shot purposely to collect a rebound. We make fun of them to say, dude, that's not real. You manufactured that. I don't know how could you feel about yourself if you stopped at first base to force a cycle on what could have obviously been and should have obviously been more than that? It feels like you're spitting in the face of the game.
Yeah, well, I think it'd just be the other way right here, right? It's if he stopped, we would have people on that side going, well, he blatantly stopped. That's
right.
For sure a double, like that, so it goes both ways. you're going to make me do a lot more research and homework here the rest of the day because I was out all day and I didn't have a chance last night to look up the stats. But I mean, what he's accomplished, the extra base hits 4 in a game, there's only a handful of guys that have done that. And,
right.
and I'm curious about what that stat is. 4 extra base hits, including what he did, the 2 doubles, triple home run, I mean. So I'm with you. It's funny that, social media, we know this now, Glenn. Everyone's got an opinion. Everyone's got an idea of what's right or wrong. Hey, everyone's entitled to it. But at the end of the day, it just whether he got the cycle or not was irrelevant to me. What I found out, just like everyone else is that if you don't know who Gunnar Henderson is outside of Baltimore,
it's time. Right.
I don't know what else to tell you because if we want to take this a step further, of future players, and I'm not going to mix words here, there's 2 players right now in Major League Baseball that I could say I would want them for the next 10 plus years. I would say Ronald Acuna Jr. on the Braves, great player, probably, MVP type candidate, and Gunnar Henderson. I can't put anybody ahead of those 2
Not
players
even
right
Julio? Not even Julio Rodriguez?
Oh, he's a good one, too.
Yeah,
I could add 3. You know what?
Yeah.
This is why we're here. I could add Julio for 3. But of those 3, Glenn, if we're going to be honest, I don't see another guy, but Julio's gotten a lot of credit. Acuna Jr.'s got a lot of the credit.
Yeah, that's fair.
And for Gunnar Henderson, because he's playing in Baltimore and he had a slow start to his rookie year, I don't think people are really recognizing what he's capable of doing. And I will say, when we get to the postseason, a lot of people are going to understand who Gunnar Henderson is.
He is Ryan Ripken. He's with us here on GCR. Maybe we call it the Gunner, by the way. Maybe that's how we solve this problem. And we just make a 4 extra base hit game, the Gunner moving forward, and you have a certain number of Gunners in your career. Ryan, how do you explain the Ryan Mountcastle thing? How do you I wrote a silly column last week openly apologizing to Ryan Mountcastle, and I wasn't even all that mean. Like I was on the low end of things that had ever been said about Ryan Mountcastle. We all know where this was just a couple of months ago. Do you just simply say this is baseball, this happens? How do you make sense of someone looking like they were completely lost to suddenly being the hottest hitter in all of baseball?
Well, it goes to show you when you're not feeling right, when something's wrong with you, it can really impact you. And I think that all of us can relate to that outside of baseball, right? And I've had moments where you go through your day or life and time builds up and you go, you know what? Like I've done this X amount of times. This is routine for me, but I don't feel like myself. And I think for Mountie, first and foremost, he didn't feel like himself. But to everyone, to everyone else, how are we supposed to know, right? Then you hear about the report, but what does that really entail? So that's first and foremost. Secondly, I think just Ryan Mountcastle always didn't maybe get the credit he deserved because, I went over this last night. I mean, we're acting like Mountie, and I had the luxury and pleasure to see him up close in person, the years in the system. He was the best pure hitter in the organization when I was coming through. And I still believe that. I know people, I think where we didn't know what was going to happen with Mountie when he got on the IL and with all the Orioles pieces, where do you fit in the hypothetical game, right? Because he doesn't walk as much, the OBP type of metric now, and does that fit the Orioles value, right? All those things. But one thing Ryan Mountcastle could always do was hit. I mean, look, he came up in 2020 in a limited fashion. In 126 at-bats, hit 333. At age 24 as a rookie, he hit 255, but he broke the Orioles rookie home run record. Sorry, Calvin. And then in 2022, a down year last year, he still hit 22 home runs, drove in 85 RBIs. And now what we're seeing in the second half, Mountie's going to hit 20 home runs again. So he's going to have 3 straight years of over 20 home runs. And I think it's just what we're seeing from him is just like every young player, because Mountie's only 26, is he's starting to figure out and find his groove. And that pure hitter ability that made him such a touted prospect, especially offensively, the Orioles are starting to see it. And then also, too, the other part of it is, when you're hot, you're hot. You
Yeah.
can't even explain it. And I mean, Mounty's just in another world right now, which in Baltimore, I don't think anyone will ever complain about how hot Ryan Mountcastle is.
Certainly
for July
won't.
and August.
Certainly won't. You saw this story this weekend from John Heyman in the New York Post saying the Orioles have not ruled out the idea of Jackson Holliday being called up. Now, it's a very soft way that he put it, and I think a lot of people started running with it in ways that are different than what he had written. And the Orioles, whoever it was that he got that from, whether it was Mike Elias, I assume that's where he got it from because I don't know how he would be comfortable writing it without it coming from Mike Elias directly. But I would assume that they would just be saying, well, we're not going to rule anything out, right? And who knows? What if, so-and-so were to get hurt and so-and-so were to get hurt? We're not going to say now, but there's no way we call up Jackson Holliday. But short of that, to you, Ryan, would it make sense to see Jackson Holliday in Baltimore before the end of this season?
It just doesn't fit what the front office and Elias has done. For as great of prospects that Adley Rutschman was and Gunnar Henderson, they both had to go to AAA, and I understand what Jackson's doing, by the way. I mean, you see why was number one overall pick. You see why he's the number one prospect. Like, he's very close. And his time in Baltimore for the next decade, at least, is coming, right? But having said that, where this team is, when you're 30 games over 500, I don't think it's necessarily fair to him to be thrusted into a position, and I don't think the Orioles are going to put him in that position. It's a great feel-good story, and again, if I'm wrong, I hope I'm wrong because I'd love to see him in the big leagues. But the pieces that they have, we're talking about the amount of depth that they have in the infield, I don't know if the Orioles, given with how they're playing, are going to say all of a sudden, hey, with everything going on, this 19-year-old, and I want to also mention this. We talked about how great Gunnar Henderson was a few moments ago. Mm-hmm. Gunnar had unbelievable years, to his ascent to the major leagues, and then he struggled out the start.
Yep.
Adley Rutschman struggled. So I just want people to understand what he's doing at 19 is beyond mesmerizing in Double A. Like, I can't emphasize it enough. But to expect that he's going to do all of that at the big league level right when that time comes, I don't think is fair to him. So I just think the Orioles are going to be cautious like they always have. And eventually we're going to see Jackson Holliday. When that moment comes, everyone's going to rejoice. But I wanted to say, let's not get too caught up, especially with how much depth this Orioles team has.
Let me get one in about the pitching, Ryan, because I'm in a weird place where I'm extraordinarily excited about what we're seeing from Grayson Rodriguez, right? It's overwhelming. It starts to make you believe that you really could be watching the first ace that we've seen in this city since Mike Messina. At the same time, I'm just not sure whether Grayson Rodriguez is going to have innings in him still by the time we get to October. And I give the Orioles credit for trying to be creative, how they've handled Tyler Wells and going to the six-man rotation and trying to push it, but it's just this sort of thing that's out there, which is how many innings do these guys really have in them before the season is over. The two guys that we know have innings in their arm, the two guys that are essentially mercenaries here, are the guys that are getting their ass kicked right now, unfortunately, in Kyle Gibson and Jack Flaherty, who, again, you would assume have whatever number of starts necessary in their arms. So I guess how concerned should we be? As exciting as it is what Grayson Rodriguez is doing, what Kyle Bradish continues to do, how concerned should we be about the two guys that we know have postseason starts that just are not effective at the moment when it comes to Gibson and Flaherty?
Well, I think what we're seeing with Gibson and Flaherty, my concern doesn't get, sky high. Like, I understand that when you look around in the landscape in the American League, who other pitching staffs have, right? And veterans that are also aces, right? So if you're looking at the Justin Verlanders, the Max Scherzers that just were acquired recently, right? But I will say this about Gibson first, is that he has shown in very big moments that he can go toe to toe. Like, he can rise to the occasion. He's had those big games where his back's against the wall. Right now, he's having that up and down kind of run. It's kind of been that up and down sequence right before the All-Star break, and then it looked like he got back on track, and now it's kind of He had that rough go. Flaherty, to me, he's had two of three good starts. I think that people forget. The Astros, he gave up 3 runs, gave the team a chance to win. Yeah, his last start was not, that was no bueno, right? That's a part of the game. I think why I have confidence is that I think what the Orioles have created and their belief as a team, I think that they are very good at picking each other up. So I don't know where the innings limits are going to handle, but I think every time I've wanted to maybe have reservations or doubts about this team, especially in the pitching department, they go and do something, whether it's starting pitching or in the bullpen, that go, man, isn't this team kind of special? Because that's what they've been. There's no the numbers aren't going to say that the Orioles are a top pitching staff, but their pitching staff has come up in big ways more times than we give credit for. And that's one of the reasons, Glenn, that they're sitting, 30 games over 500 right now.
It's fair. It is fair. And I hope you're right. Boy, I hope that every single one of these dudes is just, it does not affect them, and they push right through this wall. It would go a long way to showing what they're capable of. All right, if there's 2 things I know about you, it's that you can be found on any given night drinking a fine tequila, and it's that you would rather be talking about fantasy football. And I see, I was playing in a football. Are we doing that league again this year? I don't even know. Are we doing that? What's the?
We can get the band together.
All
I gotta get my everything sorted out, but why not?
I'm down. Now, you're doing something that's even more significant when it comes to fantasy football. What is the Ripken Rooster Rumble? Tell me about this.
So it's Ripken Rooster Rumble presented by the Iron Rooster Restaurant. And we're essentially doing a year-long fantasy football league or leagues for entrants, but we're actually making it into a whole event, so to speak. And actually, for the first event, we partner with the Jonathan Ogden Foundation, where proceeds from registering for the league is going to go to Jonathan Ogden's foundation. And Jonathan's going to be at the first event on September 8th. But for the season, we want to make this an experience for everyone involved. So, and if people look at the price and go, well, you know what, that seems high. Hey, if you want to go in on it with 3 friends and take over a team, great. We'll see you at the event. We plan to have weekly giveaways during the season, have 2 events that will have all drinks and food included, and we have a lot of good entertainment and possibilities, and that we're going to keep announcing as we get closer. So it's just been fun. And like you said, I love fantasy football. I love football season, and we thought, especially early on, what better way to give out an opportunity, plus give back to the Jonathan Ogden Foundation in the process. So that's all available on RipkenRumble.com. If anyone really has a question too, they can reach out to me on social media, and we hope to see you there. It should be a lot of fun, and I'd say stay tuned for more announcements, because we do have a lot planned, as the season starts in September and goes all the way through.
Very cool. Again, that's at Ryan Ripken on social if you want to find out more, but RipkenRumble.com is the website. Appreciate you, brother. Thanks for doing this. Let's talk again real soon, all right?
All right. You have a great rest of your Monday. Cheers.
Thanks, buddy. Ryan Ripken with us here on GCR from 105.7 The Fan. And again, RipkenRumble.com is that website. Programming update. We are mixing some things up here in the second hour of the program. Jeremy Conn is going to join us a little bit earlier than usual. That's because Tyler Kepner, who had the interview with John Angelos in the New York Times, will be joining us this morning at 11:45. So we're going to mix some things up. Today's show is brought to you by Superbook Sports. Mixed bag for me this weekend. I did hit on Novak Djokovic yesterday. Got dicey there.
I'm sure everyone did. Come on.
Well, look, it was one of the greatest
Take
tennis.
riskier
By the way,
bets.
it's easily the best men's 3-set tennis match I've ever seen in my life.
Who did he play yesterday?
For God's sakes.
Carlos
Alcaraz,
Yeah, okay.
yes.
I figured. To make sure.
You know about preseason football.
Well, yeah. That matters.
I hate it here. Aliens, I don't understand. Just take us over. Please. We're not doing anything here that's of any value.
Playing football.
Just take us. We are a stupid, stupid people. If you want to get in on whatever it is you want to bet on, whether it's very dumb like Griffin, you want to bet on preseason football. Maybe you bet the Ravens tonight to continue the streak.
I don't think they're going to lose.
Or if you want to bet on real sports, you can do that. Superbook.com. Download the Superbook app. Use the code GlennClark23. And when you do, your first bet will be matched up to $250. Go check it out, superbook.com. Go ahead and let's do this. Yeah, it's the button with the thing and the thing and the thing. Yep.
This week
In the rest of
baseball.
Well, it's Grant's final day with us for the summer.
Bummer.
I don't know. We're doing, is it Slam Poetry Day here on GCR? I'm in favor of that. No, but I said it's the final day of the summer, and he said bummer, and I thought like maybe we would talk about going to get a rum runner or something like that afterwards. This week in the
possible?
Nah, not today, unfortunately. This week in the rest of baseball, obviously we've spoken much about the Orioles this morning, but what else is going on as we are nearing September in the world of baseball?
Well, aside from the playoff race, it was a little bit of a fun day yesterday if you're a Phillies and Nationals fan. It was the Little League Classic. Of course, we remember last year that was with the Orioles and Red Sox, and so that was a fun time for Orioles fans. But this year, the other side of the Beltway got their chance, and they came home, the Nationals, with a 4-3 win over the Phillies.
Yeah, I got it. I'm not trying to. Nobody cares. But Bryson Stott, did he really use a bat that looked like a pencil?
Oh, yeah, he did.
I saw that floating around social media today, and that's the coolest thing I've ever. It
Victus.
legitimately looks like a pencil.
It's actually pretty sick. Yeah.
Now, look, and I mean this. I think the Little League Baseball Classic is cool, but this is the eternal baseball problem. The eternal baseball problem is you can't get me to care about a game during the regular season that doesn't involve my team.
This late in the season, too.
Anytime during the season, you can't get me to care about a baseball game that doesn't involve my team or directly impacts my team. That's the baseball. There's too many games. No one individual game means so much. I get that this is a good idea, and the first time they did the Little League Classic, I watched it, and then I watched it again when the Orioles were involved, and I'll watch it again if the Orioles are ever involved. Like, I love the concept. I love the idea, but it still speaks to the regional nature of baseball, which is not, I say it's a problem. It's a good thing that we care so deeply from a regional standpoint about baseball. Baseball is a great regional sport, but basketball's got the same problem. There's only one sport. College basketball actually does pretty well with the regular season, but even that's tough. Football, the NFL and college football are the only sports where you can get people to care about unique regular season games outside of one individual market. Like, that's just the only
The Field of Dreams game.
The first time it was awesome. And then the second time they did it, I had no need to watch because I had already seen it. They already did the guys walking through the cornfield. I'd seen all of it. I didn't need it again. I'm not saying they shouldn't do it, because it's still really great for those markets.
But it's after that first time it gets.
After the first time,
yeah,
you've seen players interacting with Little Leaguers. And until they're the players you care about, why do I care about the players from the Nationals and Phillies interacting with Little Leaguers? I don't care about anything else those players do. It's the eternal problem they have. It doesn't mean they should stop doing it or that it isn't cool, because it's neat for the teams that are in those markets. It's something different. It's exciting. It was very exciting for us a year ago to see a different stadium, to see a different interaction, to see a different crowd. They should keep doing them. But after I've seen it for the first time, I don't necessarily need to see it again. And the difficulty is, can you keep coming up with something different every year? The NHL dealt with this. We're like, at first, the Winter Classic was amazing. We're like, oh my God, it's snowing in Buffalo. They're playing a hockey game. And then after a little while, we had seen hockey in stadiums. So unless it was the team that you cared about, you just didn't need to watch it. It's the same thing here. I think they should do the Little League Classic. I think it's cool. But I don't need to watch it every year unless my team is involved, because I've seen it before. But if they next year announced they were playing a game, it might be the president calling. Make sure you get that. If they're playing a game in Central Park next year, I'd probably say to myself, well, I need to watch that. That's a little bit different. That's something I've never seen before. I should be in tune with that. anywhere that they go for the first time or anything new, unique, different. They used to do a military game every year near a different base or fort. So I'm in favor of all of those things, but it's just not going to grab my attention beyond the first time. Everything all right over there? We good? Okay. What else?
Well, the NL wild card race again heating up.
By the way,
here.
everyone should use number two pencil bats. That's a big thumbs up. And I want more creativity in bats in general. I've just realized this made me if you want to put cool dragons on bats and do other awesome things.
My own this season.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of that.
I'll get sponsored this season for the first time ever.
Yeah, let's get on that. All right, what else?
Well, for a while we thought the Arizona Diamondbacks were falling off after a 7-game skid. Corrected a 9-game skid shortly after the All-Star break, but nope, they're back and they're heating up. 1 game behind in the last wild card spot with a 7-3 stretch in their last 10 games. So just teams fluctuated in and out. Nobody's had a consistent spot. Just shows, and I don't know why I've been so obsessed with the NL wild card race, but it's just the amazement of everybody flowing in and out, and just all these teams. Just it's a dogfight. Everybody's a game out. Everybody's sliding in, sliding out, but the Diamondbacks still showing tremendous resiliency as to when we all thought, yeah, it's over for them. But nope, they're right back in it.
All right.
All them, Cincinnati and Miami, all tied 1 game behind the last spot. So this is going to be, I don't think I've ever followed a wild card race so closely before, but this is going to be spicy.
All right, we're going to have to pause right there, and I apologize, Grant. We're going to move some things around this hour, but that's good. So far, so good. I know it's an awkward way to close your final ever episode of This Week in the Rest of Baseball, but we will come back and let you finish it up later on, all right? Appreciate it. As right now, we're going to dive back into what we were talking about for the better part of the first hour of today's show, which is the story today in the New York Times. John Angelos goes on the record with Tyler Kepner of the New York Times about a whole bunch of different things. Joining us now, the author of that story and the man who had that interview, he is Tyler Kepner, and he is with us here on GCR. Tyler, it's Glenn in Baltimore. Good morning. Really appreciate taking the time for us.
Thanks. Always nice to hear that This Week in Baseball theme.
Yeah, I do.
That's pretty cool.
I feel a certain way. Unfortunately, I've got the Grant, who's been interning for us this summer and has been doing this Week in the Rest of Baseball segment for us. I'm not sure that anyone their age feels the exact same way. What you and I feel about that music, and when we knew This Week in Baseball is coming on, I just don't know that young people can understand that at all. It was a special time.
Yeah, that and the NBC Game of the Week theme song music. That would be played at my funeral kind of music, man. I love that stuff.
Tyler, obviously, I'm sure you're aware, a lot of reaction here in Baltimore to your conversation. I'm wondering if you could just, before I get into more of the meat of it, could you lay out the timing for me? When did you talk to John Angelos? Was it, it felt like, it was almost in response to the Kevin Brown situation. What was the timeline for how this all came about?
No, it really wasn't. I mean, I try to lay that out at the start of the story, about that we talked. And then a couple days later, the Brown thing came out. I actually talked to him, for a while, for an hour or so back when they were in New York earlier in the season, just getting to know him and just sort of laying the groundwork for something later in the year if the Orioles are still on top and still doing well. And so they were, and, that came about. We thought it'd be a good day, to speak with them when the 83 team was there. It was kind of a fun night. And so that was when we did it. And then the Kevin Brown thing came down a couple days later, and I was like, oh man. So I got to go back to him. And, I had to go back to him and just journalistically, I had to find out a little bit more about that situation before I ran the story. Because that was in the news after we talked. So yeah.
The interesting part about that being it felt like a lot of Orioles fans when that was going on said we just apologize for this and make sure it never happens again. And while there's no apology in there, it feels like the closest thing that you could get from an owner of a baseball team to an apology, which is that shouldn't have happened and it won't happen again. It's still odd to me how all of it played out. I still don't get it fully, even though I have talked to so many people about it. But I guess at least we can recognize that they're not trying to double down, and John Angelos is being uber defensive about it, and has at least said, look, that situation shouldn't have occurred.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the feeling I got from him, which was just that that he wasn't happy that happened. He certainly wasn't happy that it was taking attention away from the team. Realizes that it looks pretty absurd, and just was saying it shouldn't happen and won't happen again. I mean, in terms of getting into the blow by blow of why it happened, that wasn't the reason I was writing the story, and I wasn't going to make the whole story about that. I didn't really care. That's a little bit old, but I just wanted to get his statement sort of on what he wanted to convey about that situation, because we hadn't heard from him. I would have thought maybe that first day, if it was this big misunderstanding, you come out and say, hey, this wasn't how it happened, but he waited a while, and that was what he said about that.
So now the crux of the conversation that you had, and Tyler, I think this is the part that people in Baltimore are struggling with. What the response has largely been from folks in Baltimore is that it feels like essentially John is using this conversation to say, either I'm going to get what I want in these negotiations, or I'm not going to spend money on baseball players. And it's not direct, and I've said that a couple times today. He didn't directly say that, and so we're reacting to something that we feel like he said that he didn't actually say. But did it feel like that was what he was suggesting to you as you were having the conversation?
Well, it felt like he really wants to use this opportunity in the lease to do something new at Camden Yards, which obviously would help the Orioles business. And he talked a lot about how it would help, in his opinion, the community and all that stuff. And that's for the community and the government people to debate and all that. But it is an opportunity, because they're at the end of a lease at the start of a new one, to try to get what every owner wants, which is a Braves thing, right? I mean, the Braves. So I tried to set it up, the story, as like when Camden Yards came in, it was revolutionary because it showed everything that you could do with a ballpark and integrating the ballpark with a city. And what the Braves did was build their own city, essentially, and not just bring business to the city, but bring business to the organization, because you own the ancillary businesses. And he's been very open about how much that model appeals to him. I mean, he took the governor down there to Atlanta to see it. So that's where this is really coming from. And by calling it an existential sort of part of this organization, that I felt was significant, because to me that means that you need this plan to survive, and to survive meaning that you can keep your players and all that. So however you want to read that, but I feel like to Angelos, it's all connected.
So, the funny part being, Tyler, I think I don't know if most people, but I think a lot of us would say we like the sounds of it, right? Like it sounds like it would be good not just for the team, but for the city. The problem being the very practical side of it, which is that this is not the same as Atlanta. In Atlanta, we all know, right? They moved out of the downtown portion of Atlanta in order to find the space in order to be able to do this. In Baltimore, the space doesn't exist, and what John Angelos has asked for literally can't be done based on the way the lease is written with the other stadium downtown. They can't give up those parking spots because they have been promised those parking spots to the Ravens. Like, I think that the tough part is trying to figure out, if it just practically isn't feasible given where the ballpark is, what happens next? Like, I know that there's no obvious answer to that because John Angelos is going to keep fighting. But it feels like that almost becomes an existential crisis, which is that there just might not feasibly be a way to do this where the stadium is.
Right, and that's the sort of the detail thing. You do a story like this, you could get bogged down in the details for all the words that you have, for all the space that you have, and then you don't really, and then you don't really do anything else. I felt like it was a rare opportunity to talk to the owner and get him sort of on the record about how he feels about this plan and what the plan is. So all that stuff about the parking spaces and the Ravens issue with those and the lease. I mean, that's all going to have to be worked out politically. I think the way the Orioles see it, and maybe I conveyed this in the story, is that there's a ton of acreage there, and yes, the Ravens are there. They use it 10 times a year for football events. Baseball uses it 10 times that or 9 times that, whatever. And you have all these parking spaces. Why not turn that into some public-private fun stuff and park in all those downtown parking lots, and at the hotels and all the parking areas, and you can just walk to the ballpark. I mean, that's how you do it. Like, for example, Fenway Park is not surrounded by acres of parking lots. It's surrounded by downtown lots, and people go there, and then they walk to the ballpark or take the tee. So, I think he's trying to imagine it that way.
Right.
Whether you can do that legally or whether they can work it out, the government, that's not for me to figure out.
No, I understand. That's certainly it's above my pay grade as well. I just it comes back to but what if this doesn't go the way that you want it to go? What happens next? And that's the part that we're struggling with here. I also
yeah, that's right. That was your question. Yeah, no, and I don't know. I mean, because if they get to it and they can't do it, and they just sort of sign up again at Camden Yards and they get their $600 million to put the light bulbs back in and make a bigger scoreboard and stuff, then is it status quo, and do they just stay a small market team that has a little 4-year window, 5-year window, and then rebuild again? I don't know.
I don't have those answers either, unfortunately. Tyler Kepner with us here on GCR. Tyler, I also feel like it's interesting, and it comes on the heels, of course, and John, has said out of nowhere before the season, we always believed that the Orioles model was the Astros, and then before the season began, he told reporters, well, actually, we're trying to be the next Tampa, and I wondered in that moment if, as much as everybody said, well, they're just trying to say they wanted to sustain small market success, I wondered if that was him kind of announcing, look, understand, this payroll's not moving. Like, the one thing we know about Tampa is the payroll does not come out of the bottom third of baseball, ever. And I just wonder if we should have listened then and understood that was him saying, this is the way it's going to be here. Like, we're going to try to compete, but it's not going to be with an elevated payroll in Baltimore. That's simply not happening.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. I mean, they had a top – I think they sneaked into the top 10 in payroll in 2015, 16, 17, somewhere in there when that team got expensive. And I don't think they liked it. And I think, payrolls have still continued to skyrocket and all that. And I think it's, and now, John Angelos is in charge, where he wasn't in charge back then. So, yeah, I mean, I think I would be pretty surprised to see the Orioles. And they can't come right and say that we'll never have a top 10 payroll. But I'd kind of be surprised if they do. And so that leaves you with not an Astros model, and the Orioles would say that the Astros, Houston is a much bigger market than Baltimore and all that. But I would, the Astros model is good to me, but I don't, it's not my money, obviously.
Of course.
And I don't think the Orioles have the appetite to do that, in the sense that, they say we're not going to. He said, he doesn't think running losses is the right way to run a team. So if you're not going to run losses, you need a lot more revenue. Where are you going to get the revenue? Well, he hopes that this new stadium deal could give him some of that revenue.
No, and he also brought up the idea of raising prices. And as I said before, I know that there would be a certain part of the fan base that would say, hey, if I'm promised a good team and the players that I love, go ahead and raise those prices, because it's a lot better than paying to watch Ty Wigginton play baseball, which is something that we were asked to do at one point here in Baltimore. I bring this all up. It's sort of in the context of, Tyler, is it possible, right? Like, the Tampa thing has worked, but not to win a World Series. Is it possible to run a team that way and build an actual World Series champion, even with the quality core that the Orioles have put together? Like, can they, thread the needle perfectly to get the right players on the field at the right prices and somehow win a World Series in the next couple of seasons?
I mean, it's possible, just because the postseason is so offered so much randomness. I mean, you saw there in Baltimore the best season the Orioles have had when they got to the LCS in 14. Yeah. Who they lose to? They lost to the Kansas City Royals, who won the World Series the next year. With I think it was like a 15th payroll or something. So again, not bottom third, but squarely in the middle. So I mean that can happen, but a lot of things had to break right for the Royals to do that year. So I think once you get into the playoffs, obviously your odds are better. The better players you have, the more money you pay them, but not always. I mean, we've seen a lot of teams, like just look at this year. The Mets stink. The Yankees are under 500. The Padres are under 500. Money doesn't equate to success all the time, but it sure gives you a better chance to succeed. And that's where you wonder, when you get into the postseason, will these other teams that have more depth via payroll, will they be able to beat them? But the Royals example shows you that it can be done.
That's true. It's a very fair point. It's again, you got to thread the needle exactly the right way, and you got to have a good amount of fortune. You bring up like the 2014 Orioles, who maybe they could have won a World Series had they not lost Chris Davis and Manny Machado, and the list goes on from that point.
Yeah, I mean, they were the best team in they had the best record in the American League for a 5-year span, and they didn't do, they didn't get to the World Series. They didn't win a game past the first round or past the division series. So that's tough. I mean, and it doesn't feel like they were the best team in the American League for 5 years, but they were. So it didn't break right for them. The thing about the Royals, of course, is that, they broke through. They really took advantage of a very small window, but it was a very small window. Look at the Royals now. So, like the Pirates had 3 straight years where they were a wild card team. They didn't break through, but their run only lasted 3 years. It's just these windows are possible, but they're pretty short. And I think that's what he was saying about, in the previous interviews about Tampa Bay and Cleveland and Milwaukee, which is that they've had longer windows. They haven't broken through and won a World Series, but they have been able to avoid the 3 years and then another long dry stretch like Pittsburgh and Kansas City have had. So, what the Orioles want to do is keep this thing going somehow for a long time without running a high payroll, and that's really tough.
It is. There's no question about it. Tyler, I asked you this question before I let you go, and I'm falling back on, you've covered this game for a very long time. You've been around. You've seen everything that's happened here in Baltimore. There are a percentage, and it's a sizable number of Orioles fans that sort of lump the missteps of the Kevin Brown thing and the kind of unknown about, and they just say this is the same old thing. This is the same thing that we have dealt with forever since Peter Angelos bought this baseball team, or really after the 95, 96, 97 years. Is that fair to John Angelos? Is it fair to the Orioles for there to be this feeling of they're always going to get in their own way, they're always going to find a way to screw up a good thing?
Well, I mean, you can't really tell the fans how to feel, and I feel like, you look at, there's a lot of history there, and a lot of history is not good. So, I as I wrote, there's going to be some trepidation among the fans. I think the only thing that I would say is that it is still pretty early in this regime, and that, for whatever else people think about John Angelos, I don't know that there is yet a record of him interfering in the baseball operations the way that Peter Angelos routinely did. I don't think, he for whatever you might say about him, he never once claimed in all of our time talking that, that he knows baseball operations better than Mike Elias. I think he's very confident in Mike Elias. Now he's going to set the budget and everything. But I don't think he's going to look at baseball operations the same way that his father did. And it's early in his tenure as the chief executive there. So we don't know precisely how it's all going to unfold. Now, maybe some of the early signs are not good, but then again, look at the team on the field right now, and it is good. And they've got an open canvas for what to do because they have no payroll commitments. And with a smart guy like Mike Elias running the baseball shop, with all of his experiences in Houston, maybe he will make that open canvas into something beautiful. So I think there is definitely reason to be optimistic. Just look at the team on the field; they are fun and enjoy it. I don't want to say enjoy while it lasts, but just enjoy it, man. Because it can't get a whole lot worse than it did between '98 and '11.
Hey.
So just enjoy the fact that the downstretch here between the last winning teams and this winning team really wasn't all that long.
No, that's fair, and obviously it was done purposefully, and it worked to at least this point. There's no question about it. If you've not read Tyler's books, The Grandest Stage, A History of the World Series, or, of course, K, A History of Baseball in 10 Pitches, I would encourage you to. They're both outstanding. A lot of 83 World Series in that Grandest Stage book. It's worth checking out as we're celebrating the 40th anniversary this year. At Tyler Kepner on Twitter. Tyler, really appreciate it. Know it's a busy day. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
Okay, thanks a lot for having me.
Tyler Kepner with us here on GCR. What can I unpack quickly from there? I've struggled with like what's fair, what's unfair today as far as criticism goes. And I'm going to tell you, here's one that I think is unfair. It's unfair for people to say John Angelos just needs to shut up. Because here's what I would tell you. If he did, you'd be mad about that too. So that alone, if you have a problem with what he said, I get it. But to try to say John Angelos needs to shut up, or we've been openly critical of John Angelos for the number of times that he didn't talk. So that one's unfair. That one's unfair. I get the frustration, but it's unfair. It's the wrong criticism to choose. What's fair? What's fair is to say that what it sounds like is you saying that the future of the baseball team is going to be tied to this thing that just might not be practical. And that's problematic. Now, I have to be fair and say, again, that this is kind of how negotiating works. You try to play your best hand. For the Orioles, it's my best hand is, you want to have a good baseball team? You want to keep players around? Well, I need better ways to make more revenue. That's their best hand. I have to be honest. That's negotiating. That's what it looks like. It's not pretty. It feels like we're being held hostage, but that's negotiating. Now, to the point where we say, well, you already got your $600 million. This is it. That's how I feel. I do. My opinion is there's no more public money that goes towards the Orioles. And when you keep saying public-private, which is what John Angelos loves to say, at some point you got to tell us what's the private side of it. Because there's an awful lot of public. Now tell me what the private part of it is. And maybe that's what he's not done a good job. Maybe John Angelos knows that there's a far better private commitment that's part of it and isn't laying that part out in the correct way in the court of public opinion. If you're going to negotiate publicly, you at least might want to put the side of where, what are you doing for this on the table? Because just for the betterment of the city, well, there's a lot of things that would just be for the betterment of the city. That doesn't mean that we can just keep giving money away. It doesn't work that way. But it's fair to say that it doesn't present a good picture for you to make it look like the future of, do you like this baseball thing? You like this? I better get what I want. And again, he never directly said that during the interview, but it reads that way. It reads like there is a tie between it. The more concerning part is the idea that, again, what isn't guaranteed and what is that if they get what they want for this Camden Crossing thing, he's not guaranteeing that means they're going to spend money on baseball players. And that is, when you talk to people in other, like in Miami, there's the scenario where you can give and you get nothing in return. That all you get is an opportunity to allow a baseball owner to profit and nothing else out of it. Although, again, uniquely in this circumstance, you would still think that at the bare minimum, it would be beneficial for the city. There would be more people downtown. There would be more, like, the bare minimum. I can't defend it. I can't do that. But I can acknowledge that it might just be negotiating. And that's ugly. We all got remember 2013 when the Ravens won the Super Bowl and they were supposed to get the Thursday night game at home, but the Orioles had a game scheduled. And there was a lot of cattiness about this. Like, how dare these creeps from the NFL try to muscle their way. That's not what it was. They were trying to negotiate. They were trying to paint a picture for what's best for the city of Baltimore. And you can have whatever opinion you wanted to have. It ultimately ended up being a terribly bad look that day because the 2013 Orioles didn't end up being good in September, coming off of what had been a good season. and there was a meaningless baseball game being played downtown on that evening with a very small crowd as the Ravens are being skull-dragged in Denver, which doesn't mean they wouldn't have been skull-dragged at home. It wouldn't have been It wouldn't have been Denver. I don't know who would have been. I don't remember at this point who it would have been. But they might have been skull-dragged in that game. They did this fun bit where they got rid of their best wide receiver for no reason after the 20. It was this wacky thing that they did where they were like, the guy that kind of carried us to a Super Bowl, we don't want him anymore. So maybe they always were going to have a tax to pay because of it. And then after that season, they were like, hey, we need a wide receiver kind of like the guy we had that we just got rid of. And then it was weird because then the following year they were good again. Not that I don't still think about it 10 years later. Moral of the story, it was negotiating. There was money involved. They were trying to position, and it gets ugly during those things. And I can acknowledge that negotiating gets ugly. And that's not fair. And you can say it's not fair to the team or to the fan base that it's happening at the time in which the Orioles are very good, and that should be all that we care about. It's not fun, for sure. But negotiating be like that. Things be like that sometimes. In a weird way, this is not as egregious to me as the Kevin Brown thing. The Kevin Brown thing was egregious. This, at the moment, is just some words. Now, we'll see. Like, the question becomes, if the state simply says, we can't, John, we'd love to. This sounds great, but it's not possible. What happens then? That's when this becomes problematic. And that, again, for the lowest common denominator, people are going to say, well, that's when it's Nashville. No, stop. That's not it.
So are you calling John's bluff kind of almost? Or?
It's not that I'm calling his bluff in any way. It's that I don't, as much as he wants, and what Tyler Kepner said, based on his conversation with John Angelos, it's all fair. There's 10 dates in a football stadium. Give or take, right? Like, there might be another concert during the course of the year.
So the preseason games.
No, there's only 1 or 2 of those anymore, right? Like, there's, even if you count those, there's 10 to 12, if they host a postseason game, we're talking about at most like 13 dates on the calendar. Maybe one year they go crazy, they have a soccer match and a concert in the summer, right? Like, but we can't even math our way to 20 dates. It's less than that. Meanwhile, the baseball team is definitively 80 plus. Again, postseason could go over 90. If they want to host concerts, you could get in the territory of 90. So you can understand, well, if we have this many dates and we have this many dates, and this goes back to the original agreement with the Stadium Authority, which was that the baseball team was going to have the first right to every date literally on the calendar. I don't think people understood that about. Like, as much as we defended the Orioles at first about they have the date, the NFL should play on Wednesday, whatever they wanted to say back in 2013, the part that we never wanted to deal with was the Orioles had the right to say like the marathon, by the way, you don't get to have your event. We can just kick you out if we make the playoffs. We can just say that's not happening. That was what was given to the Orioles, in fairness, because their stadium was there first. In order to create this stadium district, they had to give something to the Orioles to say, you're going to lose some parking spots, you're going to lose something, but here's what you're getting in return. Understandable, right? Like, I get it. That's what you had to do. The Orioles feel like they should have more. We have more dates. The baseball team, the stadium is more beneficial to the city than the football stadium is. They're not wrong. But there's still, like, practicality still has to exist. And to say, well, give up those parking spots and just have people park in the garages downtown if they want to drive downtown, that doesn't work for football. Football is very unique. In football, tailgating is part of the culture. It's part of if tailgating were to go away, there would be people that simply would not choose to come to football games, period. Because it's about the event for them. It's about the day. It's not about taking the light rail to the game. It's about the kind of camaraderie and fellowship and almost religious experience of a football day. So you can't compare those things. And can it be practical? I struggle with it. Can we get a break? Is Jeremy going to lose his mind?
I mean, he might. But.
Well, I mean, I love him, but we're good. All right, let's grab a break here, and then Jeremy Conn will join us, and we'll talk more about this fun day. Love this. This is exactly the type of radio that I enjoy doing. Do you want to tell everybody about what's going on at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland first?
Yeah, I want to tell everybody about David's. Something new here at Live Casino and Hotel in Maryland. Check out David's new menu featuring barbecue ribs, strawberry cheesecake waffles, Blue Bay mussels, and, of course, snow crab legs by the pound. Your perfect gin and tonic is just a shake away as you craft your perfect combo. And be sure to stay for live music every Thursday through Sunday at David's at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. At Arundel Mills, must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, we'll come back in and talk to Jeremy next. Glenn Clark Radio. You feel that? That's the sound of football coming back, and now's the time to place your preseason bets with Superbook Sports. Superbook is the most trusted name in Vegas, and now you can use my promo code GlennClark23 to score up to $250 with their first bet bonus. Win or lose, they'll match your first bet up to $250 with the promo code GlennClark23. All one word, no spaces, 2 N's in Glenn. Don't miss out this football season. Win some money with Superbook Sports and that promo code GlennClark23. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
It's another exciting weekend of affordable family fun at Prince George's Stadium with the Bowie Bay Sox. Last weekend of the regular season kicks off on Friday the 8th with Adley Rutschman Night. Mystery Adley Rutschman giveaway items for the first 750 fans. Fireworks on Saturday with the return of our 1K beer run. See how fast you can complete the race while getting 3 beers down. And our Birdland celebration on Sunday. Free autograph items for the first 1,000 fans. Get your tickets now by calling 301-805-6000 or anytime online at baysox.com. The Bowie Bay Sox. Let us be your 9-inning vacation.
I'm Michael Jangrandy, president of AJ Michaels, your carrier energy expert for 44 years. Save money, energy, and make your home more comfortable and virus-free. Find us at ajmichaels.com. That's ajmichaels.com.
The latest edition of PressBox is available now. On the cover, Bo Smolka dives into what's next for Lamar Jackson after receiving one of the biggest contracts in football history. Is Lamar ready to take the Ravens to the next level, now with a new offensive coordinator and new wide receivers? Also inside, we look at what new football coaches Brian Newberry and Pete Shinnick bring to Navy and Towson, respectively. And we meet players from the college football and soccer programs around the state. PressBox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores. And you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the O's, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
It's a Maryland thing you wouldn't understand.
Where the waves meet the shore, you will find Dorchester County. Hi, this is Jimmy Charles. When I think of Maryland, I think Dorchester County on the eastern shore where it's open for making memories. Dorchester County, it's a Maryland thing. For more info, visit www.visitdorchester.org.
It's a Maryland thing. Hell yeah. It's a Maryland thing. Hell yeah.
America's biggest bike race returns to Maryland Sunday, September 3rd as 120 of the world's best cyclists race the Maryland Cycling Classic presented by United Healthcare. Come enjoy the free fan zones and festival with interactives, food, and drink beginning at noon. Then see the exciting race conclusion from 3 to 5 p.m. in the Inner Harbor. Come be loud, be proud, and let the world hear you. For more information, go to marylandcyclingclassic.us.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
If you miss anything on the show, don't forget that you can watch full episodes at youtube.com/pressboxonline, and you can download podcasts on Apple, iTunes, Amazon, and Grindr. Wait, did I say Grindr? I don't think that you would find it on Grindr. Not that I know it's on Grindr or anything, I swear. On second thought, you know what? I don't care what you think. Here's Glenn.
All right, back in here on GCR as we can continue along here on a Monday edition of the program. Fun day! Jeremy Conn. I'm late getting to him because I'm a jerk, but I love him nonetheless. And he is with us now here on GCR. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
Oh, what's that? You want me to come on at 12:30?
Yeah, I know.
1 o'clock?
Right?
What time do you want me to come on?
What a jerk! What a jerk, man! What a jerk!
He literally said, "Can you come on at 11:15?" And I wrote perfect.
Yeah, and then well, okay, so as I'm sure you guys had to deal with this morning. Like you plan a show, right?
Yeah.
And then this
things
new
change.
this New York Times thing comes out, and we're like, oh, well, I guess we've got to deal with this now. Like clearly, that's going to be the agenda for the day in this media. So, we had reached out to Tyler Kepner, who wrote the story for the New York Times, and he had said, yeah, absolutely, I'll come on at 11:45. And then he just randomly called in. Like, literally called the hotline at 11:10 or whatever it was. And Griffin's like,
Yeah, and it's not like you're not going to get Randy Jackson.
Correct, exactly right. If you got a sword, you go get it signed by Randy. Hey, did you see our buddy, there was a hot take from our friend Eric Arditi over the weekend. Did you see this one?
Maybe.
He claimed that the Sweet Child of Mine scene is completely unfunny and the worst scene in all of Step Brothers. How did you feel about that?
The Sweet Child of Mine. All right,
where they're all in the car, right? And it's Adam Scott, it's Derek.
Oh.
And he starts
yeah,
leading them
Derek.
on in a sing-along, and he does the, and I sing high like this. Yes, correct.
Phenomenal scene.
I agree. Now, I had to think about it a little bit more. I don't know if it's if the point is that it's not alone slapstick comedy as much as it's setting the tone. It's teaching us more about Derek and what he's all about. I could listen to the argument about whether or not it alone is purely hilarious. I think we all like it in the context of what we know, the purpose that it served in the movie. But if we just saw that on the internet, if it was just a TikTok one day and we knew nothing about the movie and it was 4 people singing along in a car, I don't know how I would feel about it. The problem is that's not what it is. So Eric's an asshole.
I have a problem with that just because of I feel like the character development in that scene alone, and just that one scene, the car scene, tells you everything you need to know about Derek's wife.
Yes.
And it tells you everything you need to know about Derek.
Yep.
And so I do think it's important. I'd say this though, in the movie Step Brothers, I still feel like the greatest scenes were kind of deleted from the movie. The Hawk Hand scene, if you've never seen it.
I do remember, yes. I remember.
So it was a deleted scene, and basically they get to open up one gift before Christmas. And so Brennan opens up a rawhide wallet, and Dale gets Hawk Hands. So obviously with these grown children, Brennan's going to be pissed off that Dale got effing Hawk Hands, and he got a freaking rawhide wallet. So, but it's still, that movie has one of my favorite lines in a movie in movie history, where the husband has to go to the Cheesecake Factory, and she goes, well, it's Christmas Eve. And then he goes, well, Merry Christmas then. And then he leaves. I mean, it's just perfect. It really is a really well done movie.
I'm going to go to the Cheesecake Factory. Now I'm remembering all of the context of it too, which is just
and it's just, they're over there playing with the toys. He's like, yeah, I'm going to go. He said, I'm going to head over to the Cheesecake. But honey, it's Christmas. Merry Christmas. That makes it all better.
Oh,
and then I found out too, by the way, that the scene where he pretends to be a dinosaur. Did you read about that this weekend?
No, I didn't.
That was off the cuff. So Adam McKay went over to, what's the actor's name? Richard, the guy that played the dad. I love him.
Oh yeah, he is brilliant. God damn, he's brilliant.
In every single thing he's in, he's brilliant. And he
Richard
Adam
Jenkins.
Yes, Richard Jenkins. Adam McKay walked over to him and he said, I want you to tell Dale and Brennan that your dream was to always be a dinosaur and pretend to be a dinosaur. Because this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. And he said they did it in one take, they recorded it, and the reactions are all natural. So it was really cool. Sorry, we get on a rant about Step Brothers.
No, it's better. We're better served dealing with that. It's the 15th anniversary of Step Brothers.
Yeah, I'm gonna find out where Eric lives and sweep the leg.
I mean, what a jerk, right? Like this is by the way, but this is the problem with Eric is that when it comes to movie, he's also the guy that hates The Sandlot. So, at some point, he's just sort of, shot his wad. This is who he is. He's a movie contrarian, and we just can't take anything he says about the topics. I love him. He's one of my a close friend. But we just can't take anything he says about movies seriously because he's clearly he's unserious.
How about his love for Jurassic Park? I mean, how weird is that?
I like Jurassic Park. Everybody likes Jurassic Park. But, like, come on, man. Like, it's a known fact that he, like, camps out at the movie theater for all of these crap Jurassic Park films they keep putting out.
Can we just do a segment where we bash him and see how long it takes him to get back?
Yeah,
to
right, for him to realize what
Yeah.
we're doing. What a piece
Anyway.
of crap that guy is. Why are any of us friends with him? All right.
Our DT. Those are not even my favorite letters in the
Yeah,
alphabet.
they're like some of the worst, right? And it doesn't even make sense. Like, try to read it. Reddit's terrible. Get
They
out.
give two of those away on Wheel of Fortune at the
That's
end
true.
of the show every time.
Right.
An R and a T. You get those automatically.
He's just a
You want the
D.
D?
That's it. Yeah, he just. Yours was better than mine, for the record. Yours was better than mine. All right. Oh God. So how do you handle it? Like, we talked about this with the Kevin Brown thing a couple weeks ago. I'm in a weird place where, like, I get why everybody's worked up about this. I also know how negotiating works, and that you're going to try to project that, well, if you want to have a good baseball team, we're going to need this. Like, I understand that's how negotiating goes. And I also understand that it, like, conflates with the bigger problems that existed during the history of the Angelos family's leadership of the Baltimore Orioles. And it all kind of comes dumping in together in one moment. I'm kind of at a loss for this one, which is I am probably not quite as worked up as everybody else is, but I am concerned about, like, what happens if just feasibly the city says, we can't do this. We can't give you this space, or the state says it. It's not possible. We have to have 4,000 or whatever the number is parking spots for the Ravens. We can't give away the parking lots. That's not going to happen. Where do we go from here?
Well, I mean, this whole thing, first off, like, I just listened back to myself telling people, don't treat John and his brother like you did his dad. Like, they're not definitely. You don't know that the Angeloses are going to be just like their dad and this and that, and here we are. It's like I can just hear myself, stop. Just give them an opportunity to prove that they're not. And I don't know, maybe this. You guys talked to Tyler. What did he have to say about the article? Was there anything that I don't want to say taken out of context, but like if he said, hey, I can't afford to pay all three, like Jackson Holiday, Adley Rutschman,
right,
and Gunnar, like. They're all going to end up wanting max deals, and I can't afford to pay all of them, and that makes it difficult. Like, I'm listening to that, but I don't even know why that has to be brought up now. Like, it's such a stupid thing to say right now.
That's the weird part to me, right? Because I've seen a lot of the criticism is just, hey, John Angelos just shouldn't be talking. But we're going to criticize him for that too, right? Like, and that's the difficult part about this for me, is that the lease thing has hung over and everybody has wanted to know about it. And so if John Angelos wasn't talking, we'd scream and yell, well, why isn't John Angelos talking? So I don't think that's a fair thing to say. I understand the point of, well, you don't need to be telling everybody right now that you're not going to sign your baseball players. But I do wonder if that's part of negotiating. And maybe I'm giving him too much credit, right? Like,
no, that was the next point I was going to make. Like, is this some sort of, I don't want to call it negotiating through the media, but like you're letting it be known, like, hey, if you want me to keep all these players, then I'm going to need all this other stuff. And I think you probably nailed exactly what this is. I don't know that business needs to be done that way, but it seems like these scare tactics. Oh, I don't know if the team will leave. Oh, I don't know if we have enough space. We'd like to build something extra. You better look at the team's really good. I don't know if we can afford these guys. I mean, that's what it feels like. But either way, it just sucks. Like, we don't get too many of these years, and maybe we have a few more of them coming. Let us at least think we're going to have this great team for the next 15 to 20 years or whatever, or that at least the next 5 years are going to be great for us watching these guys play together. But we can't even get that. We have to worry about, okay, enjoy it now because it's going to be gone when their contracts come up.
Jeremy, to your point, I don't think I certainly don't have any misgivings that every single player is all going to get a $300 million contract and they're all going to stick around long term. I think we all, for the most part, have understood the Orioles aren't going to be the Dodgers. They're not going to be the Yankees. There's some in between. But the weird part to me is that this comes on the heels when the next Tampa thing came out in spring training. I remembered feeling much more strongly about those comments than a lot of people. There were a lot of people that wanted to say, well, that's probably just his way of saying, like, I want to compete as a small market team. But to me, it felt very pointed. He didn't say the one thing we know about Tampa is they're always in the bottom third of payroll. Always, 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 always. And when they take a jump up, they take a jump up to 21st in payroll. And that's like the most that they spend. And then they cut that back as well. And it felt to me like they were announcing as prominently as they could stop thinking this is going to be the Astros. It's not going to be the Astros. We're going to do the Tampa model. And it sounds like, okay, well, Tampa wins a lot, and they're kind of regularly in the mix. That's a good thing. But we also know why it's been extraordinarily difficult for Tampa to sustain and build a World Series winner specifically and uniquely. It's because the players are constantly coming in and out. And it's very difficult to get that fan base to get, excited and fall in love with that baseball team and commit and believe to it. And it's this almost unique baseball experiment that, there's a reason why a lot of us wonder if Tampa is going to be able to sustain as a baseball market, despite the fact that they're regularly winning.
Yeah, well, I think they just took their first really big hit with the
Wander
Franco stuff.
yeah.
We don't even know how that ends.
Yep.
And I'm not trying to make light of anything, but it sounds like he's not going to play baseball again from some of the initial reports that are coming out. And if that's the case, I mean, this is kind of the first real big blow to this Rays organization outside of some of the injuries. I think somebody should look into why every one of their pitchers has to have Tommy John. But that being said, they really don't have any misses when it comes to free agency. They didn't have too many misses in the trade. The one miss, I guess you could say, is them moving Joe Ryan away. But that was to get a player they thought could help them in that year. So I get it. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind the business model being them if you're going to spend more money. And it sounds weird. It would suck. And I get it if they all end up being the type of player we think they can be. It would suck to draft Jackson Holliday, Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, and see one or two of those guys walk away when the time comes. If you believe the way I do that, Rob says it all the time, and I was saying it too off the air. Adley Rutschman's a generational talent. I think Gunnar's better. And I think Jackson could be better.
Might be better than both of them, right? Yeah.
I mean, we just don't know. And in saying they're better, there's certain aspects of the game. The team clearly changed when Adley came up, but we have this talent now, and then it'd be nice to be able to keep it together and have this homegrown team. And as somebody tried to point out, the Braves had a lot of foreign-born players that they drafted and were able to avoid some of those arbitration years and make that happen. And it's just I don't know now that you're going to be able to do that with a ton of players unless they just really want to get paid right away. And, some of those guys need to help out their families, send money back, all those things.
I'll go even a step beyond, Jeremy, which is that, if you're not going to sign those guys, then there needs to be a conversation about what this window really is, right? What is the window right now? And it was brought up to me a couple times around the trade deadline that when we talk about it as a 5-year window, if you're not going to sign these players, then you need to trade them when they have the maximum value, right? That's the Rays concept. The Rays concept is you maximize everything that you can in every asset, and you don't do the Manny Machado bit where you don't win and you trade him for pennies on the dollar, right? You have to find the max. So if that's ultimately how this is going to go, then it's not really a 5-year window that we're talking about. It's more like a 3-year window that you're talking about with this core of players. And if that's the case, then probably there's more room for furor about the trade deadline because, this is your chance. What you're looking at right now, while we all say, hey, it's the beginning of the window, the truth is the window is so small and 1 or 2 injuries can derail you that you definitely should have been far more aggressive at the deadline this year to say this is the small opportunity that we have in order to try to win a World Series. We need to go get 2 legitimate starting pitchers in order to pull this thing off. It's all very that's. I feel like I'm flaming and I'm sort of bumbling all over because I'm losing my mind about it. But this is the reality. The reality is you've got to be practical about what you're doing here. And if you're not signing these guys, then you should have been taking more advantage of the window that you have.
There's no doubt. And I mean, that's the frustrating part of all this is that you go through these years of rebuilding and you want to get to a point where you're successful. And then the hope is that you're actually not just building something for the next 5 years, that you're building something that now has become a machine. And, you're obviously not going to be able to sign everybody, but if you're signing your own and you're drafting, well, that's one thing. The thing you'd have to say about the Rays is not only have they proven that they make smart decisions as far as their business model, but they draft well, usually drafting anywhere from the middle to the end of the draft. And that's where the Yankees have been really good at doing that. The Rays have been really good at doing that in recent years. So you're going to have to prove, and I feel like they have the right guys, but if you're not going to pay the guys on the team, then you better pay to keep this damn front office here, because if I'm another team looking at what they're doing here,
no doubt, right?
I'm starting to piece this away the same way the Astros did. Give me that guy. Give me that guy. Like, I don't know how you don't look at their business model and say, oh my God, what they're doing is incredible. Yes, you have to hit on each one of these, but so far they've done a really good job not having misses. They've had some injuries, but I feel like they've done a fairly good job, all things considered, with baseball.
Man, God, I hate this so much, dude. Like, I am so.
We can't have nice things in this city. Like, it's just,
sucks, man. It's just, look, I get it. Again, like I feel like I'm doing the thing that I'm criticizing fans about. Like, what I hate is I'm over the piss and vinegar part of my job, and I think that you and I have talked about this before. Admittedly, I have more sensitivity to it. I don't know how you felt in the aftermath of leaving the old radio station that doesn't exist anymore, but like I felt an amount of I don't want to be associated with just constantly criticizing for the sake of criticizing, right? Like I don't want to that be the way that people look at me. And I'm sensitive about that constantly, but Jesus, man, like there are just don't leave me in this position where I don't have a choice, right?
Well, that's so like a lot of the fan base when the Kevin Brown stuff came out, they were like, I can't believe you guys aren't killing him. And I said, look, I just want to know what the full story is. If this is 100% the truth, that they suspended him because of what he said on that television broadcast, then shame on them. Like, this is ridiculous. But like the report that he puts out, like, it just leads me to believe that something else must have happened. I don't know.
I don't know. Based on what he said in this interview, it sounds like he's kind of not denying that any of it is, but it's so bizarre. Like his response is, well, that shouldn't have happened and it'll never happen again. Well, like, but it did happen, and how did it happen?
Yeah, and the thing that, like, and I know Kevin wants to move on past it because look, it's his job, it's his livelihood, and doesn't want to say anything that could upset whatever. But if that's the fact, then yes, it's a huge black eye for the team, and it's been that way nationally. Now this other stuff that's going on, it just, as a fan, it sucks. And I've done a really good job of pulling my fandom out of talking about things. The Orioles are the one team that I grew up with, and it makes it really difficult. But I think with all the years of losing, we've kind of become numb to it, or at least I have. So I don't live and die by certain things until the playoffs start. That's really when my fandom's going to ooze out. But I got to say, once that article came out, once the Kevin Brown stuff was, and I'm going, what are we doing here? Like, let's just have one nice ride where somebody doesn't have to look and go, hey, look, there's a crack in the roller coaster.
Right.
It's like, wait a minute, is that where we're going to fall off? Like, this sucks, man. They even talk about this stuff.
Everything else good?
Is that war in Ukraine still going on?
Yeah, God. Did you ever watch Suits, by the way? Because I'm giving that a shot right now, and I can't tell if it's good or not.
My wife is watching it now, and so now I'm watching all these episodes. It seems like it's probably a show that I could watch and be into because I get into some of her episodes, but I'm not watching it. No, I'm actually, as soon as we get off the phone, I'm going to watch Winning Time.
Oh.
And I'm so excited to watch this because I feel like this episode's going to be centered around Larry Bird.
Yeah, but this one might be taken away from us too, right? Like, I don't know if you've been paying attention. Jeff Pearlman's been on Twitter talking about how apparently the ratings have not been good, and like HBO's threatening that there's not going to be a season 3. Like, God, can't I have anything in my life? Anything.
It's really good.
It's
great. Really freaking good.
Fun as hell. And I'm pissed off about everybody that was angry. But, well, this isn't, that's not really how Jerry West was. F yourself. F yourself.
I like Jerry West even more now.
Correct.
He was that angry. That's so big.
Correct. 100%.
But have you watched Telemarketers yet?
No, I don't even know anything about Telemarketers. What's Telemarketers?
So Telemarketers it was Danny McBride and the Safdie brothers put this together. It's about the greatest telemarketing scheme that's ever gone on. And it's like, hey, I'm with the Association of Firefighters with this and this, and we'd like to get you to donate some money to us. And I watched the first episode. The second episode is now out. It's a 3-part series.
What's it on?
It's on HBO.
It's on Max? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, man, you did tell me about this, didn't you? Griffin told me about it. All right.
I like it a lot. Yeah. Like, when a dude's like snorting heroin and get ready to make phone calls, it's just, I'm going,
all right, I'll watch. Yeah. I'll watch. I'm in on. You know what I still
snorting heroin.
You know what yeah, right. Once you said heroin, I was like, well, I'm still mad at myself. I haven't watched the Beanie Baby movie yet either, and I've been wanting to watch.
I watched part of it. It's okay. It doesn't
Never
look
mind.
like Jack Black initially, or Jack Galifianakis initially. But once you're into it, you can see it.
All right. Yeah, I've been trying Suits because like we're in that part where like there's not going to be new content for some time, which sucks.
Yeah.
So I've been trying Suits, and like I've literally watched 6 episodes, and I still find myself saying like, is anything about this good? Do I like this? I've watched 6 episodes, and I have no feel for it whatsoever. None. No clue.
inherently the problem with some TV shows that a lot of people like because they like that genre or whatever it may be, is that you just don't care about the characters. Like when I was watching The Walking Dead, I was into it because I cared about the characters, read it. When they start the Fear the Walking Dead, I started watching it and I'm going, I don't want to watch this anymore. It's just the same crap. It's like zombie. Like, why am I doing this? So I feel like you have to care about the characters, which going back to what we talked about with Step Brothers, it's inherently important that you have that development of those to make you dislike them, whatever.
Yeah. Maybe it's why that scene kicks ass and goes. Let's bring it all back. Go screw Eric Arditi,
Yeah.
you piece of crap.
You know what's good for shoulder pain?
Yeah.
Hey, sorry, look at my. Oh.
Yeah. All right. What's coming up on the show this week?
So it's just Rob and I. Ed's on vacation down in Florida, and so we've been going over like top 5, like we've been doing like position rankings, but it's been different. It's been the top 5 guys that aren't the top 5, top 10 guys. So like, who are the guys you should be watching? So we did quarterbacks last week. I'm sure we'll do running backs or wide receivers this week. And it's the same stuff like Orioles, Blue Jays, going to be great. Ravens preseason game tonight, so I'm sure we'll be talking about all that.
Yeah, that makes one of us. I'll pass on that.
I agree.
How'd you enjoy your interview with Michael Orr this morning? How'd that go?
Yeah, it was great. I forgot it was supposed to be today because, I was telling the guys, and I wanted to put it out there that we had scheduled it.
Yeah.
And
sure
so
had.
I mentioned it,
Yeah.
and then, like you said when you called me, inherently we were going to get that email like, ooh, it's kind of a bad time for us
Yeah.
now. Wonder what happened.
Yep. But the funny part being, when it all came down on Monday, and I was like, oh, I got a bad feeling about this, and I sent the message. The first message I got back was, no, we're going to be there. Can't wait. Looking forward to it. And I was like,
Yep.
wow.
They
this
must not have seen what it possible.
Yeah. Apparently the people involved had no idea why
There's
it was
an
that I was
alien invasion going on?
Right.
What? And you're
What's
looking
that?
at they have no idea what's happening.
Very weird. I had Jeremy Conn 1057 on Twitter. Of course, picks every day, PressBoxOnline.com. Love you, buddy. We'll talk to you next Monday.
I'll see you guys. When? 11:15?
Yeah, we'll get whenever we call.
9:45?
Block out your entire hour for my dumb show, for my stupid nonsense internet radio show. Go ahead and take
I'm
an
always
entire hour out of your day. Love you, pal. Thank you.
Love you guys. See you.
Jeremy Conn with us here on 105.7 The Fan. John from Little Rock, I understand what you're saying. So I brought up this idea that the Orioles have first right of refusal of every date, and they essentially can muscle their way out of anything. He says, so what happens if the O's have a postseason game on the same day as the Billy Joel concert? I'm sure that will become an Angelos pissing match. So the date of that is Saturday the 7th of October. Here's what I would tell you. By the way, is that Wild Card Weekend?
Yeah, I guess it is.
Is that when that would be? That'd be the weekend, because they now do that all, like, three games in 3 days.
So would they have a bye?
Yeah, presumably they'll have a bye. But if they don't, then yes, it's totally possible. I don't remember how that works anymore. Does one team host all 3 games?
Yeah,
Wild Card
hosts,
Weekend.
They'd have to be the first wild card to host that weekend. It is October 3rd is the first day, so I guess it would run from the 3rd to the 6th, I guess. Wait, so maybe it wouldn't interfere if there was.
Oh, so they don't do it on the weekend anymore? They do it. They move the schedule.
All right, hold on.
Because they were doing it at first, where the wild card games are all over the course of that weekend. Because they try to get them over with quickly, so that it's not a long break for the team that wins the top 2 seeds.
Yeah. So the first wild card, the set to open up the wild card series on Tuesday, October 3rd.
Okay. All right. So then, that would be that. Then even if they win the division, then they'd probably be home that weekend.
Yeah.
So it becomes problematic.
When Al says the AL and NLDS series openers are scheduled to begin on Saturday the 7th.
Right. So here's what I would tell you about that. There's enough reason for agreement that presumably when the Ravens announced the concert date, they had talked it out with the Orioles, and the Orioles had run it by Major. I don't know these things, but based on what I know of how these things have happened in the past, I would have reason to presume that they talked it out, hey, this isn't going to be a problem, right? And either they got assurances from Major League Baseball that if there's a game that day, it will be in the afternoon, or that their series would start on Sunday instead of starting on Saturday. That almost certainly was handled and not left. Like, they had a contingency plan built in this time around. They didn't build a contingency plan in when they announced the Major League Baseball schedule back in 2012. because it's such a unique one-off of if you happen to be the one team that wins the Super Bowl. Now, because it hasn't been an issue again, I've never revisited it. But we do know that the Orioles have had games scheduled on that Thursday. They've played at home on that Thursday that would be the first Thursday of football season. So I don't know if they built in a better contingency plan. Like if there's been an agreement in place since then, well, hey, if the Ravens win the Super Bowl, here's what we're going to do differently. Because I haven't poked around on that, but maybe I'll poke around on it for funsies. The significance of this concert and what it means, I have to believe that they built in contingency plans with the Orioles to make sure that didn't happen. But I can tell you, and I reported it at the time, this is beyond a shadow of a doubt. If the Orioles had continued in the playoffs, whatever year that would have been, 13, we're talking about, I'm sorry, this is 10, 11 years ago that we're talking about. I can tell you as a fact that there was a point at which the Baltimore Marathon was going to be canceled because the Orioles were going to be home for a playoff game, and they were just going to say sorry. That's it. Because that's the power that the Orioles have within the structure of downtown and the stadium authority. Well, we remember the power the Orioles had when they were trying to do the car race, right? Like, the Orioles have an unbelievable amount of power. But that uniquely, the Billy Joel thing, like, I refuse to think there's any possibility that wasn't worked out ahead of time. And if it wasn't, I give up about what anybody is doing. I have no idea what anyone does around here. I never know what she's doing back there. Mom, the meatloaf. We're just mixing up Will Ferrell movies now this morning. We're just going with all of them. Refuse to believe that. All right. You want to just play the music one more time? Because now Grant has to pick it back up where he left off, and this is only this has to be the greatest this week in the rest of baseball because it's the last one, because we had to separate it. Like, this better damn well be the greatest tidbit in the history of this week in the rest of baseball.
This week
in the rest of
baseball.
But, like, no pressure or anything, Grant. Like, no pressure. This better have been worth it that we came back to this after we got sidetracked. You better make sure that this is what you're finishing up with. This is the last thing that anybody's going to hear from you here for the rest of the forever, honestly. Yeah. Well, no, forever, unfortunately.
Forever.
Got bad news. It's just all ends for you here. You go into your life as a dermatologist moving forward, which is great. Like, you'll make plenty of money. But nobody's going to care about your opinions about baseball at that point because you're just going to be worried about skincare. That's the way it's going to go.
And I'm getting paid.
This week in the rest of baseball brought to you by this print issue of Pressbox, which is available for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms and in the hundreds of locations around town where you find Pressbox. Read it all, PressBoxOnline.com. Great cover story from Bo Smolka about Lamar Jackson's future after the contract and whether it's time for him to take that next step and lead the Ravens to a Super Bowl victory. Go pick it up right now.
Well, there's a couple things on my mind right now. One is that we have the first member of the 2023 draft class who has already made his Major League debut.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was crazy.
Nolan
Schmanuel. Schmanuel. I thought I saw it Schmanuel.
Is there an M?
What?
I didn't see one.
What did I say? Shanuel. Shanuel. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, but not Shanwell. Shanuel. I did see that over the weekend. Yes.
He's already made his Major League
Good for
debut.
him.
21 games in the minor leagues, and he hit 370.
The Orange County Register made it very clear that it's pronounced Shanuel.
Shanuel.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean 370 batting average.
It's Shanuel. Because it's not Shanwell. No, that's not.
What
you
I
did
say?
that. You did that Shan poorly, not Shanwell, because it's not Shanwell. It's Shanuel.
We'll just call him Nolan.
Shanuel. We've established that we can move forward now. It's Shanuel. Go ahead.
11th overall pick out of Florida Atlantic.
See, because you were sitting.
Only played in.
I'm not. I'm done. Go. It's 12:08. We got to take another commercial break. We don't have time.
I mean, it's incredible. I mean, that's really all I had to say. It was just him coming up that early. I haven't seen that.
Well, it was coming up in context of the conversations we were having about this John Heyman report about Jackson Holiday.
Right.
And well, if they can bring this guy up right now, why couldn't the Orioles? Well, I mean, there's a couple things there. One was a college player. One wasn't. Like, that does matter in context. Also, it's kind of desperation from the Angels and kind of naked desperation from the Angels, who decided not to trade Shohei Ohtani, actually traded for other players, and have had nothing to show for it.
They did turn a cool triple play the other night, though.
There is that.
Still lost the game.
Yeah,
And our friend
Ohtani hit a grand slam.
I don't know if everybody Olivia Witherite, who used to work for Masson, and I really like. She's very sweet. Has been through some tragedy this year, which is awful. But Olivia Witherite, who I think is still working for The Athletic now. Maybe she's doing something else. Maybe no, she left. All right, she left The Athletic. I don't know what she's doing now. But Olivia apparently went to a game in Anaheim. What day? The 18th. So that would have been Friday. Yes. She sends a video. Just saw a Shohei Ohtani grand slam in person. I have been blessed by the baseball gods in ballpark number 19 for me. Her next tweet. Shohei hit a grand slam. The Angels turned to triple play. Los Angeles falls to the Rays 9-6. Can't believe I saw the Angels' Tungsten O'Doyle in real life.
Oh my!
It is kind of magical, right?
Even when I saw the Angels,
like,
when I went out there,
you got the
tungsten.
Special.
Ohtani struck out 10 guys. He stole a base later in the game,
and the Angels lost. Did they do anything? Did they do anything at the plate in that game?
What?
Did Ohtani do anything at the plate in that
he
game?
got on base a couple times. Like he stole a base. Like
It's the full Tungsten O'Doyle experience. You got it's
I was
like
blown away by Ohtani,
and no fans were harmed after the game.
I don't think so.
Right. It's like you go to see Everclear. You want them to play Santa Monica, baby. Like play the hits. Tungsten Armo Doyle the F out of my trip to an Angels game.
Yes.
Give me the full Tungsten experience.
I'm getting tickets next year.
Man, that is something. Yeah, they did that, and everybody said, well, if they brought him up, then you can bring up Jackson Holiday. I don't really want to have the conversation. It did not. What was actually reported did not warrant. I wish that Stan would have been more engaging when we were trying to talk about it on Friday. Like, I think he was too dismissive of it to at least talk it through. Then he'd just say, well, they're not going to do that. Well, okay. Why? Like, again.
Yeah.
Like, we gotta have that conversation. But it did not warrant the amount of internet hype that it was getting over the weekend, because the actual words that were used by John Heyman was simply, they will not rule it out, which, as I said, like it would be it would be insane for them to say, well, there's no way. Now, even within, I thought about it more after what we talked about. Well, what if this guy gets hurt? What if that guy gets hurt? Then Joey Ortiz and Connor Norby should be here.
Yeah.
Like, that's even in the injury situation, I would still say you have enough qualified major league players. Like, I don't think that it should be Mateo playing every day, but I think if there were to be an injury to somebody, then I think that Joey Ortiz and Connor Norby should be at the major league level.
As polished as they are.
Like, they should be at the major league level already.
Yeah. Agreed.
I don't think the answer should be to immediately skip to Jackson Holiday. Again, you got to deal with all these things in the offseason and the glut of what you have and the fact that it doesn't make sense and it's not helping you for Joey Ortiz and Connor Norby to be playing in the minors. It's insanity that you're continuing to do that, although when Norfolk wins that shiny trophy at the end of the year, then we get that.
That's coming.
We get a parade, correct? Like, we get to throw a parade here for a Norfolk AAA title. But no, what was said did not warrant the amount of hullabaloo it made on the internet, and I still, like, the circumstance by which I would sign up for it. Although it's funny because I had tons of people on the radio show yesterday messaging me like, no, you do it now. And I got an argument from somebody that said, you do it now because if ultimately someone is one of your best 13 position players and you're playing important games, you should have your 13 best position players playing in those important games. And I understood the argument. I don't know definitively. I think ultimately Jackson Holiday quite clearly is going to be one of their 13 best position players. Yeah. Do we know that today?
No.
I don't know. Yeah. And that's a tough thing. I ultimately came to, I won't be up in arms if they did it.
Right.
Okay,
cool.
let's ride.
Yeah.
Like, let's
cool.
go. But
if not,
it still comes off to me as probably not the appropriate thing to do. Although, let's add into this equation, if they're openly announcing that they're not going to sign guys, and the window's shorter, maybe you need to get on with it. Maybe you need to get on with it. I don't know. Go ahead. Anything else?
Well, huge congrats to a former Orioles prospect who is making the start for the Cardinals tonight. Drew Rom is going to make his major league debut.
That'll be a tough one. That's going to be this is going to be one of those things that we're going to watch, especially if Jack Flaherty does not
pan out.
Like, if Drew Rahm is finding success and Jack Flaherty is struggling.
Well, you want to talk about Rahm. He's got a .082 in 2 starts with AAA Memphis.
I'm not going to overreact too much to 2 AAA starts, but it's going to be real tough in an organization where we keep talking about the lack of pitching if ultimately you paid the price of a pitcher in exchange for somebody who was non-helpful. That's going to be a tough thing for us to talk about for years to come. And it's a little bit different even than, like, the Jake Arrieta conversation where you're like, look, man, it wasn't working here. You can be as frustrated as you want to be about why it didn't work here, but it was not working here. No. And they were trying to win, and he was taking up a roster spot, and they kind of had no choice. Like, again, go back in history, try to figure out why it didn't work here. But I've never been able to argue.
The facts were the facts at the time.
Right. In the moment, they had to do what they had to do to try to win. Even when we talk about, like Eduardo Rodriguez's success that he found. Well, Andrew Miller worked. Yeah. Like, Andrew Miller panned out, and if that team stays, keeps their players on the field, they might damn well have won the World Series that year. But the Flaherty thing was always tough because you looked at it and you're like, I get that you needed to do something, but this seems like a price to pay for a guy that hasn't been good at pitching and who hasn't been good at pitching since he arrived here. I think Mike Baumann was being way too fair earlier when we were talking to him about Jack Flaherty. Like, well, his last start was
pretty good start. So.
He had one. I wouldn't even say great. He had one good.
I saw a second
quality start.
His
shaky. Second start was at best shaky. You can try to use words like gutty to describe him getting through 5 innings and at least
with just 3 runs.
Right, but it wasn't good by any stretch of the imagination.
And
obviously, yes, disastrous the last time. All right, that it.
That's it.
Good job, Grant. It's been a solid summer, man. Well
you.
done.
Thanks to everybody for listening to us.
And if you're walking around at Stevenson University for some reason, just walk right up to him and tell him to tell you what's going on in the rest of baseball. Just walk up to him and demand he do a live on-the-spot version of This Week in the Rest of Baseball.
I'm down to do it.
Or any question about the 2010 Orioles.
That's right. Yeah. If you have any questions about the 2010 Orioles, God, what a weirdo. All right. Thank you, buddy. Well done. We'll come back in. We'll get a tidbit. We'll get a tubular to wrap it up for a Monday edition of GCR.
Catch that festival feeling in Charm City. Everywhere you go, you'll find exciting entertainment, delicious eats, and endless summertime fun. Cheer on the O's at Camden Yards, pick crabs by the waterfront, beat the heat inside a world-class museum, and make memories that will last a lifetime. Go to baltimore.org for more information and to plan your visit.
It's game on every day at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Here, you are in on every play with 100-foot screens at Sports and Social, the best table games action, and FanDuel Sportsbook, all just steps away. The best bar bites and drinks to indulgent steaks and curated cocktails. Your game day only gets better when matched up with Live's distinguished dining options. Late game? No problem. Our luxury hotel awaits. Live Casino and Hotel Maryland is the place to be on game day and every day. For more information, visit www.maryland.livecasinohotel.com. At Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All electronic tolling is here to stay in Maryland, and DriveEasyMD.com helps you cruise a little easier. We're Maryland's tolling resource. Home to EasyPass, pay-by-plate, and video tolling. It's never been easier to pay your way. DriveEasyMD.com. We'll keep you moving.
The Orioles are off and running, out to prove that last season wasn't a fluke, and they are one of the best teams in baseball. Hi, I'm Paul Valley, host of the Bat Around for PressBox. Tune in every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon as Zach Goodman and I break down every Adley bomb, every Tony Tater, and every save from the mountain. Like a warm hug from Rutschman, the Bat Around has you covered with all things Orioles as we embark on what's sure to be a magical summer in Birdland. So tune in every Saturday for the best in Orioles coverage right here on the Bat Around.
Picking a restaurant to try for the first time? Let's look at the Costas Inn. Here's a few checklist items. Quality of the food? Check. Quality of service? Check. Does restaurant have plenty of free parking? Check. And finally, does restaurant have delicious steamed crabs, crab cakes, crab soup, and specials galore? Check, check, check. Costas Inn, 4100 North Point Boulevard. They check all the boxes.
The latest edition of PressBox is available now. On the cover, Bo Smolka dives into what's next for Lamar Jackson after receiving one of the biggest contracts in football history. Is Lamar ready to take the Ravens to the next level, now with a new offensive coordinator and new wide receivers? Also inside, we look at what new football coaches Brian Newberry and Pete Shinnick bring to Navy and Towson, respectively. And we meet players from the college football and soccer programs around the state. PressBox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores. And you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the O's, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
It's another exciting weekend of affordable family fun at Prince George's Stadium with the Bowie Bay Sox. Last weekend of the regular season kicks off on Friday the 8th with Adley Rutschman Night. Mystery Adley Rutschman giveaway items for the first 750 fans. Fireworks on Saturday with the return of our 1K beer run. See how fast you can complete the race while getting 3 beers down. And our Birdland celebration on Sunday. Free autograph items for the first 1,000 fans. Get your tickets now by calling 301-805-6000 or anytime online at baysox.com. The Bowie Bay Sox. Let us be your 9-inning vacation.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
If you need more of Glenn, you can also hear him every Sunday with Rita on 105.7 The Fan. But also, if you need more of Glenn, what's wrong with you?
All right, let's wind down for a Monday edition of the program. Tidbit is brought to you today by Superbook. If you are thinking about betting the Ravens and trying to see if you can't continue this streak, maybe you're very confident about it.
Yeah.
So go bet them, right? Go sign up for Superbook right now, superbook.com. Download the Superbook app. Use the code GlennClark23. That's GLENNCLARK23. And when you do, you're going to get a first bet match up to $250. Win or lose. So even if the unthinkable occurs tonight and the Ravens lose a preseason game, our institutions all crumble. Right? I don't know what society looks like tomorrow, but what I know is you'll have up to $250 worth of free bets to use on Superbook. Now, I don't know if society will withstand losing a Ravens preseason game, but if we do, you'll be able to use that up to $250 in free bets at Superbook. So go sign up right now with the code GlennClark23. That's GlennClark23, Superbook.com, or download the Superbook app.
Julio Rodriguez, he became the second player ever with 4 straight games of 4+ hits. So he had 17 hits in a 4-game span, which is the most all-time in MLB history, and he tied the record for most consecutive games with 4 hits in a game with 1925 St. Louis Cardinal Milt Stock.
That was going to be my next guess, actually, was old Milt Stock.
Milt Stock?
Yeah, right. Oh, Milt Stock.
So Julio he also became the first player with 15+ hits and 5 stolen bases.
Hey, has Carson started doing those AMSR videos yet? I need that in my life so bad. Duke.
Milt Stock.
Milt Stock. Duke. Snyder. Rocky.
Do you mean to get
Calavito.
Guess we got to get on him for that.
Pee-wee. Reese. I need that. I need that in my life so much.
Luis Urias is the first Red Sox player to hit a grand slam in
back-to-back at
games,
bats.
Back-to-back games played.
Oh, I thought it was at bats. I thought he might have been the final, but I thought it might have been the final at bat.
Oh, was it?
I thought I saw that it was back-to-back at bats. I could be wrong.
It might have been.
I don't know. I don't know.
But he became the first 9-hitter to hit a grand slam against the Yankees since Luis Rivera did one. Oh, for the Red Sox. Sorry, misread it. It was consecutive plate appearances.
Thank you.
First player with a grand slam in consecutive plate appearances.
I tell you what, I'll take care of Tidbit moving forward. Yeah. Don't you worry about it.
This is cool. 2009 was the last time someone hit.
Well, I actually know, but only because I just looked it up to prove that I was correct. Josh Willingham. Yeah.
Josh Willingham.
Name I would have easily forgotten about.
Yes.
Who else does Josh Willingham work for when we need to play the grid? Who else did Josh Willingham play for?
The A's, didn't he? No.
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
he was.
He
The
had
Twins
some
and
of
the
his
A's.
best years. Nationals.
He was apparently a Royal at one point.
Yeah,
Okay.
he was almost an Oriole. He was very close to being an Oriole.
All right, Marlins, Nationals, Athletics, Twins, Royals.
Okay, a good name to pocket away.
There you go.
Gunnar Henderson obviously was incredible. He helped the Orioles win their 77th game yesterday as the Orioles officially hit. They're the first team to hit their
real
over.
Weird. Almost like somebody told you at the beginning of the season. What did you see the 2 bets that I had?
I know one of them was the over.
The over on the
what
Orioles
did you get
wins.
It was like 74 or
70. I get some absurd number. I got that, and I got plus 220 on
Gunnar.
Shohei Ohtani being MVP.
Oh, that's a good one.
And I said to everybody, you're getting plus money. What are you doing? Like, you're not going to get plus money for very long. I get it. It's absurd for anybody to not have plus money in an MVP before the season, but it's Shohei freaking Ohtani we're talking about.
I got Gunnar like 2 weeks ago at plus 115 for Rookie of the Year.
I get it. And at this point, with Josh Young being...
I don't think he's going to come back,
yep,
at least not the regular season.
Then at this point, it seems like it's his.
So Gunnar, 4 extra base hits in a game. They're the most by an Oriole since 2008. You know who did it last?
I can go beyond 2010. I promise you.
Oh, you know?
I mean, I'll take a shot. I mean, I can pick the line. I can pick apart the lineup.
No, go ahead. Go right ahead.
2008.
Do you want me to go?
Luke Scott.
Not Luke Scott.
Melvin Mora.
Melvin Mora. Yes.
Ah, look at this guy.
Most
Look at
recent
this
Oriole to
guy.
do so. Gunnar also the youngest Oriole to ever have 4 extra base hits in a game.
Again, we got to come up with a cool name for it, though.
Melvin Mora, ironically, the oldest Oriole to ever have 4 hits in a game.
I could have
4
said
extra
Kevin
base hits,
Millar.
Kevin Millar.
I could have.
He is the so I was looking into it while we were talking to Ryan Ripken, and so 4 hits in a game, 4 extra base hits in a game is, I mean, it's not common, but it's happened. It was the 6th occurrence this season.
Okay,
that it's happened. Jaron Duran did it. Matt McLean, Mickey Moniak, Adolis Garcia in his 3 home run game. Adam Duvall against the Orioles.
All obviously future first ballot Hall of Famers.
Yes.
The entire list.
But now, if you do go more specific and go with players with 2 doubles, a home run, and a triple, then it becomes much more rare. The last time this was done was 10 years ago, 2013.
It seems like the cycle has happened far more recently than that.
Yeah.
It's almost like this is better than a cycle, and we just have to come up with a stupid, kitschy name in order to give it so that mouth breathers will stop saying, yeah, but it's a cycle. God, I hate this place.
Most recently was David Wright. David Wright
How
of the
about
Mets
that?
in
How
2013.
about that?
Before that, it was Sam Fuld.
There was a time where we thought David Wright was going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Like there was a trajectory that David Wright was on where he was as special as it got.
I like all the guys that have done it since 2000. Sam Fuld did it for the Rays in 2011. Ian Kinsler.
Okay.
For the Rangers, he did it against
Damn
the Orioles.
good player.
Against the Orioles in 2009.
Thanks. Yeah.
Stephen Drew, while he was with the Diamondbacks. Dustin Pedroia.
Ugh.
Mark Teixeira.
Oh, yeah.
And Eric Byrne.
Why'd you say you like this list? There's
I liked Ian Kinsler, Stephen Drew, Sam Fuld.
And then it got dark.
Bernsey was my guy when I was out in Arizona. That was my dude. He was on those Diamondbacks teams that I covered. Good guy.
So with 4 extra base hits in a game, he is the 12th youngest player to ever have.
Bernsey also has to be a cheat code on the grid because he played for like everyone too.
Do you want to know who the youngest player, or try to guess who the youngest player with 4 extra base hits in a game is?
Gunnar Henderson.
No. He's the 12th youngest.
12th youngest?
Yes, Gunner's the 12th youngest.
What?
Andrew Jones.
Not Andrew Jones.
Soto.
Not Soto.
Oh, jeez.
He is active.
Currently active.
Yeah, but he's in the very twilight of his career.
Oh.
No, he just started.
Twilight of his career.
Yes.
Acuna?
No, not
No, Acuna's definitely not in the twilight of his career.
I hope not.
He's very much at the apex of his career.
No, I know what you mean.
I don't know. It's 12:28. Tell me.
Okay, Miguel Cabrera.
Oh, okay. All right.
20
Yeah,
years
sure. I
old.
probably should have gotten
20
that
years
on.
old in 2003. He had 4 extra base hits, and then second on the list, second youngest to ever do it. Your favorite, really old guy.
Oh, we get to the baseball, old-timey baseball names? Nap LaJoy.
Not Nap.
Cap Anson.
Not Cap. Mel Ott.
Hey,
Indeed, the
that's
second
my
youngest.
guy.
And I know you were trying to guess that. All right, but he is. So when I did the parameters, again, did 2 doubles, a home run, and a triple. He is the second youngest player. Gunnar is to ever do this.
Behind Mel Ott.
Not Mel Ott.
Tris Speaker.
Not Tris Speaker.
Louis Aparicio.
Not Louis Aparicio.
Okay, who is
You're on the right track.
Oh, okay.
You
God
want to
damn
keep
it.
guessing names.
Rocky Calavito.
Not
Eddie
Rocky.
Matthews.
Not Eddie
Jimmy
Matthews.
Fox.
Not Jimmy Fox.
Ralph Kiner.
Not Ralph Kiner.
Al Kaline.
Al Kaline.
Hey!
Al Kaline.
There we go.
And then, we can call that. We can call it a day there. There's been 14 Orioles with 4 extra base hits.
God's sakes.
We
Well,
don't
they're
have
not
to guess.
playing tonight, so we can do it again tomorrow.
Okay.
All right?
Do
It
it
won't go anywhere. We can do it tomorrow. Very good. Here's coming up, Totally Tubular Eyes. Tubular is brought to you by your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. If you hate yourself, Ravens Commanders, 8 o'clock tonight on ESPN.
I don't hate myself, and I will be watching.
Locally. I got some questions about that. I'm going to give you you got the clock for tomorrow?
Yeah, I can do the clock. Minute clock, right?
Yeah, minute clock
good.
for tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's what you get.
Okay.
And then we don't.
We drop it?
Unless somebody gets hurt, unless there's something,
Catastrophic.
that's the only thing that it could be is somebody getting hurt. Unless somebody gets hurt, that's all we're doing. 1 minute, you get tomorrow to talk about what happened in tonight's. God, I hate it. What I really hate is that it'll be on at the bar while we're playing trivia, and inevitably people are going to be distracted, and it's going to mess up my trivia game, and I'm going to be at the bar later because of. I hate it. Little League World Series coverage on ESPN before that. Also locally on WBL TV if you don't have cable. MLB Network, Giants, Phillies, 6:30. Fox Sports 1, Mariners, White Sox at 8. USA for Crystal Palace, Arsenal at 3. And then WWE Raw at 8. And that's it. Non-sports.
It's a better week. Tonight there's not much. Bachelorette, American Ninja Warrior, and on A&E, The Secrets of Prince Andrew docuseries.
He was
involved
in that. All right. Grant, thank you for everything this summer. Great work, bud.
Thank you guys
Best
for
of
the
luck.
opportunity.
We'll be in touch, obviously. You never know when Grant might pop up again. Remind everybody where they can follow you.
Follow my dermatologist career.
That's right. I'm looking forward to it. I need you to deal with this burn that I have on my arm. What can you do about that?
I'll research on
Thank
that.
you. Get on that for me.
It's just your first appointment's discounted.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
20G to Vivo.
That's
20GDEVIVO.
Did a fine job all summer long. Yeah, happy to have you. I just realized I need to get in touch with somebody that I told them they could intern in the fall, and I haven't heard back from them because I got to make sure we have a fall intern. We could probably use another one if somebody's interested in an internship, getting their foot in the door. Hit me up at Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter. Nobody can DM anymore because of this stupid guy.
Oh.
Jesus Christ. Email my personal email account, glennclarkradio@gmail.com. Do it that way.
I recommend the experience, guys. If you're listening to this now, this is a learning opportunity. Come in here and do it. If you want to learn from one of the best, two of the best in here, do it.
Well, you don't have to.
Well, I think when he said one of the best,
I don't think you don't have to do. You don't have to do that. Thanks, buddy. All right. Thanks today to Tyler Kepner. Thanks to Michael Baumann. Thanks to Ryan Ripken and Jeremy Conn. We'll get it all up in the greatest hits section of the.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Tab at glennclarkradio.com. Anything?
Stuff and things.
All right. Thanks everybody at Pressbox, all of our great sponsors and partners. Visit Baltimore, Live Casino and Hotel Maryland, the Maryland 5-Star, Glory Days Grill, Dorchester County, the Bowie Bay Sox, Royal Farms, Costas Inn, Superbook Sports, Baltimore Orioles, Birdland Sports, Easy Pass MD, Washington County, the Maryland Cycling Classic, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Monday evening. Go nobody. Duke sucks.